Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The Trump administration announcing a deal with Pfizer to lower drug prices and a direct-to-consumer website for Americans to buy drugs. We have the details. President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joins a rare gathering of military commanders. We look at what they told America's top generals and admirals. The U.S. government is on track for a shutdown tonight at midnight after a White House meeting failed to get Democrats on board. We have the latest. The FBI sent hundreds of agents to the U.S. Capitol and nearby locations on January 6, 2021, according to an after-action report. We discussed with the national political reporter for the Epoch Times. President Trump says he's giving Hamas terrorists only a few days to accept his Gaza peace plan. The warning from the president this morning.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump just announced a direct-to-consumer website for Americans to buy drugs. The White House has dubbed the initiative Trump RX. Trump also announced a deal with Pfizer that will see the drug maker lower prices on multiple products. Here's the president.
For many years, Americans have paid the highest prices anywhere in the world for prescription drugs. They paid far more, 10 times, 13 times, 15 times more than other countries for the exact same product. A major reason is that the American consumers have been subsidizing research and development costs for the entire planet. They put all of that on us, and yet they were the beneficiaries too. So it's being changed. So it's something. That's why I signed an executive order combating this practice, and we signed it very happily a little while ago. Today, Pfizer is committing, as will other drug companies as we go through the weeks. But Pfizer is truly one of the biggest in the world and one of the greatest in the world. Today, Pfizer is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid, and it will be at the most favored nation's prices. It's going to have a huge impact on bringing Medicaid costs down like nothing else.
President Trump has demanded that drug makers cut prices. He gave pharmaceutical companies until yesterday, September 29th, to respond to an executive order. It requires drug makers to match the lowest price offered in other developed nations. Pfizer is the first manufacturer to reach an agreement. As for the new website, Trump RX would allow patients to pay cash for certain drugs at a discount negotiated by the administration. The Trump administration says it's putting an end to political correctness in the military. Here's President Trump addressing the nation's top generals and admirals from around the world in Quantico, Virginia.
The apparatus of our country was not set up for merit. It was set up for political correctness. And you can never be great if you're going to do that. And we're going to be greater than we ever were before. We're bringing back a focus on fitness, ability, character, and strength. And that's because the purposes of American military is not to protect anyone's feelings. It's to protect our republic. And it's the republic that we dearly love. It's to protect our country. We will not be politically correct when it comes to defending American freedom. And we will be a fighting and winning machine. We want to fight, we want to win, and we want to fight as little as possible.
Trump outlined plans for the military, including a $1 trillion budget in 2026, the most in the nation's history. Building the first ever sixth-generation fighter jet, expanding the U.S. Navy by at least 19 ships next year, and raising the pay of every service member by 3.8%. The president promised to military leaders that he has their back 100%, and they can count on him to keep the U.S. out of wars. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also had a strong message to military leaders.
Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards. They're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now.
The secretary said that for too long, the military promoted leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, gender, and other so-called historic firsts. But that ends with the Trump administration. Hegseth criticized fat troops and generals, saying they are unacceptable and create a bad look. He said that from now on, service members will have to meet height and weight requirements and take fitness tests twice a year. The secretary also said no to beards, long hair, and superficial individual expressions. Hegseth had a message to military leaders. Those who disagree with the new policies should resign. Two federal agencies have determined that the Minnesota Department of Education and the Minnesota State High School League violated Title IX by allowing transgender athletes to compete in girls' sports. The joint finding comes from the Department of Education and Health and Human Services. It concludes that over the course of several years, Minnesota allowed male athletes to compete on several girls' sports teams, including lacrosse, track and field, and volleyball. The federal department conducted a 2-month-long investigation into state policies. The state and its education agencies have 10 days to amend their policies to comply with Title IX and President Trump's Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports executive order. President Trump has announced a new round of tariffs. Trump yesterday signed a proclamation imposing new duties on imported timber, lumber, and furniture. Starting October 14th, new U.S. tariffs will hit the wood products sector, 10% on lumber and 25% on furniture, with sharp increases coming next year. In January 2026, duties on upholstered wood products will climb to 30%, and kitchen cabinets and vanities will soar to 50%, targeting imports from countries without U.S. trade deals. The White House says the move will strengthen supply chains, boost industrial resilience, and create high-quality jobs. President Trump added that the tariffs would spur investment, drive innovation, and increase domestic production, especially for industries vital to national defense, noting the U.S. military spends over $10 billion a year on construction projects. Officials argue the policy is needed to stop losing market share to Chinese furniture imports, which the Commerce Department has deemed a national security threat. But critics in the furniture industry warn the tariffs could disrupt supply chains and raise prices for American consumers. Congressional Democrats are not backing down on their health care and budget demands, raising the possibility of a government shutdown at midnight. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the details.
Democrats continue to demand Republicans to include in the short-term funding bill a provision to extend Obamacare tax subsidies. They say this is the only way Republicans will get their votes to keep the government open. Listen.
We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment.
So what Schumer is trying to do here is essentially to use this shutdown as leverage to get assurances from Republicans that whatever budget they agree to for next year, Republicans won't then try to undermine later by using more pocket rescissions packages to go back and cut from that agreed upon 2026 budget. Now remember, the Republican-controlled House already passed a short-term extension of government funding to keep the lights on through November, but it failed in the Senate because of lack of Democrat support. So Republicans say there's nothing to negotiate on their bill because it's simply meant to extend the government funding levels that both Democrats and Republicans already agreed to last year. Basically, the White House meeting did nothing to prevent the possibility of a shutdown.
If they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown.
So what happens if the federal government shuts down? It's actually a partial shutdown where some essential services are kept. Mail service will continue to run. Social security checks will still go out. Essential workers like FBI investigators, CIA officials, among others, will stay on duty, though those who are still going to work while the government shut down won't get paid until Congress acts. But then those who are furloughed during the shutdown will get back pay for the time that they were out. Though a government shutdown this time will have more consequences than previous ones. That's because the Trump administration directed agencies to use this opportunity to get a better understanding of how they can reduce the federal workforce permanently to further the administration's plans of slashing the overall size of the federal workforce. Trump this morning was asked how many federal workers he plans to lay off. Here's what he said.
Well, we may do a lot, and that's only because of the Democrats. And as you know, they wanted to be able to take care of people that have come into our country illegally, and no system can handle that.
But for the time being, Republicans are pinning their hopes on the fact that Democrats might cave and let go of their demands like they did back in March. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
A potential government shutdown could be just hours away as Republicans and Democrats remain at odds over a proposed stopgap spending bill. Joining us now to discuss is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. And we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent at the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. First of all, good afternoon to you both. Mike, I'll start with you today. How much of this, is about substantive issues, and how much about is it trying to make the other side look like they're to blame?
That's a great first question. First off, good to see you all. Let me see, percentage-wise, I think it's probably a 50-50 line. I was watching Speaker Thune today on C-SPAN earlier, and Chuck Schumer, both giving their different speeches and talking about the different times that there's been government shutdowns, and Thune was talking about the different times that Democrats have all voted on the same side, obviously blaming them now because they need the 8 votes to get this to pass. And then in turn, you hear Schumer talking about that, they've called the offices different times to try to meet throughout this entire period, and that this is all Republicans' fault. So again, and Thune said this in his speech, so I don't want to steal his thunder. He said, this is what politics is, right? This is what the word politics was invented. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So I think a lot of it is performative. The substantive part, maybe I'll change my percentage here, Don, and make it a little 60-40, because I think that the actual substantive part in terms of the ACA credits and these expiring before midnight are things that do impact millions of Americans starting later today at 12 midnight. And then there's also the fact that there's going to be government employees, like Melina just mentioned, that are going to be furloughed, that ones that are going to have to work for free while the shutdown happens. The last time we had a shutdown that lasted about 35 days was between the 2018-2019 period. Nobody wants to go to work and work for free, Don. Nobody wants to get back pay, a month or so later. So this is really coming up against the 24th hour here. And we truly need something to come to fruition over these next couple of hours.
So, Tony, what do you think? How much of this is about the issues at hand?
Well, I think that the issue at hand is really about the direction of both parties. And I think that I agree with Mike, of course, because he and I very much agree on the performative part of politics and then versus the policy side. In this case, though, I find them linked. And the reason I say that is because right now the Democrat Party is searching desperately for a message before midterms. And so what you have is a bill that they already voted on, that they already agreed to. Again, the Trump administration through the executive office suggested pocket rescissions, and then the Supreme Court upheld that for the next 30 days, that being a week ago. So about 23 days now, let's say, remaining to go until Congress does anything regarding that. So what we have right now is a Democrat Senate who is trying to play tough. And Hakeem Jeffries, as you see on the B-roll on the screen to my right, also trying this kind of performative yelling, and it's just not working. There's no actual substantive message here. Again, when the RNC Twitter account, one of the right-wing kind of research and receipt accounts, can post you saying the exact opposite thing a year ago, it's not a good look. And again, as we get into the full midterm season, a 14-month stint in any administration, you have an entire party that's essentially built around finding a message and then refusing to do so. So I actually had a conversation with a Democrat representative this morning out of Indiana who's very frustrated because he feels right now the Democrats need to be looking for a message. Instead, they're whining about a bill they already agreed on a year ago. It just doesn't look good.
So, Mike, broadly speaking, do you think there's actually enough time for lawmakers to, debate, negotiate, and actually pass spending bills?
Yeah, that's the question. I just reached out to a Democratic lawmaker as well to come on the show later today because Speaker Johnson sent the House into recess for up until October 7th, if I'm not mistaken. That was one of the things that Schumer had mentioned on the floor there, on the Senate floor. So is there enough time? There's always enough time, Don, right? Like, obviously we can find enough time to potentially get. Now, is there enough time to negotiate on the issue? Remember, they need 8 Democratic votes right now. They have 0. And right now it's what, 2:14 p.m. Eastern time. So if I had to be a betting man, if I was wagering this live bet right now on one of the betting applications, I would 100% hammer the bet to us have a government shutdown starting at midnight. I don't think that there is enough time, which is why, back to Tony's point, the House tried to pass this clean CR recently and give the extension of the 45 days so that way we can continue to debate these issues. But as Tony and I have talked about in this segment numerous times throughout our history doing this, those are just punts, right? That's just that's just, pushing it further down the trough and not really fully funding the government through the entirety of the session of Congress. So that's the problem with all of this right now, is that there is time, but there's not enough time, if you know what I mean.
Okay, Tony, I can't even tell you the number of times I had to report a government shutdown each year. I really don't want to report on it anymore. How do we avoid this?
So you've actually touched on the reason that this doesn't matter to Americans. I saw a Kamala Harris campaign staffer say, well, actually, 43% of the public believes that a shutdown is bad. 36% say it's the other party's fault. And I hate to tell you this, but more and more Americans just don't care. Because after the 432nd time we've come on the air to discuss, the recent stopgap measures, will Johnson get it through with a slim majority? Will the Senate hold out, or will Cory Booker stand and yell for another 18 hours? Americans have seen this before. They know how it's going to go. The Democrats are, in fact, going to cave, because if they don't, Russell Vought from the OMB is going to swing on through and say, you know what, a lot of these federal workers we don't need. And, when the executive branch is given additional authority through a shutdown, this has really cornered the Democrats into a lose-lose situation that, again, they did themselves. When the election in 2024 took place and Americans made it very clear they wanted parties to work together, they wanted Democrats to move to the right, not Republicans to move to the left. That was the mandate. The mandate was not for the left to move further to the left. We can pretend otherwise, but it is true. Moderate Democrats performed far better than those on the far, far, far to the left side of the aisle. And instead of coming to the table and negotiating, not making it easy for states like Illinois, Minnesota, California to take federal dollars for their own citizens and then use state money to then fund illegal immigrant healthcare needs, as the Chicago Tribune reported in 2019 and again in 2021. Well, it's just kind of awkward, yet an unfortunate truth and reality that when Democrats say, I'm not budging, give us the money, or we're going to shut the government down. Again, the Americans that do care, albeit fewer of them than ever before, they're not rallying behind Democrats. They're just browsing social media angrily. And unfortunately, slacktivism doesn't win votes.
Okay, Mike, can we get your response? Is there a way that we can actually avoid this issue at a structural level?
Yeah, I have to respond to some of that, but not in a bad way. I'm actually going to piggyback on something Tony said there. See, I would love to be in either camp right now, because the blame game is very easy. So let me just tell you what I've spoken to a few of those moderate Democrats that Tony mentioned: Congressman Glenn Ivey, Congressman Seth Moulton, Congressman Pat Ryan. They're all in that similar moderate Democrat type mold. All of them have done town halls recently, and Congressman Glenn Ivey said on my show, he said that whenever I talk to constituents, they realize we don't have the numbers. Why is it that we don't have the numbers? Because this mandate that we've been talking about, that Tony even mentioned there, played out in the election, giving Republicans control of the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. So it's very easy for Democrats to just say, you control everything. What do you need us for? Now, on the flip side, the counter to that is math, as I just mentioned before. They need 60 votes to fund this. So they do need 8 Democrats. And as Thune did earlier today on C-SPAN in his speech, he brought out all the times that Democrats cited to fund the government over these last, I want to say it's 24, 36 months, whatever it was, on his whiteboard that he brought out there. And it was in the 98% to 100% of votes, meaning that they know how to keep the government open. They just don't want to do it this time. So it is very easy to play the blame game from the political angle. But to Tony's point, people don't care. Not only that, but they have short attention spans. They're not going to remember this. Now, Don, your broader question of how do we avoid this? Well, we avoid it because polling always shows us that we do want bipartisanship, but we never get it. Here's a perfect example of both of them needing to work together, because 52 plus 8 is 60, and neither of them are willing to budge on certain things. And we saw it yesterday play out. Both of them went out there in respective conferences right there on the White House lawn to reporters and blamed the other side, as opposed to saying, hey, when are we going to meet again? Because we only got 27 hours. When are we going to do this? It's a perfect example of why people are so turned off to American politics, just because within that whole stanza, they met inside the Oval, and then they go out there each respectively and continue to blame the other side. When Tony said it and I said it, Americans do want both of these parties to start working together. That's why you get slim majorities every single time, whether it be in the House or the Senate.
Okay, Tony, please respond to any point you see fit that Mike said there. And also, I want your comments on, there's talk of the administration using the shutdown as an opportunity to carry out layoffs.
Oh, I mean, that was an obvious. Russ Vought is someone that I know. He's been looking forward to doing so, given the opportunity, for quite a long time. The majority of the right believes there are a lot of federal bureaucratic agencies that simply staff too many people. And I say that knowing many of the individuals who, for example, in housing and urban development, people whose entire jobs were essentially to write essays on why using one style of Adobe brick is more water soluble than the next style of Adobe style brick. I'm sorry, you don't need a full-time government position to do that. And I do believe that there are a lot of things to cut in that area. That's something the right's kind of used as an axe to grind for a long time, and rightly so in a lot of ways. Now, that said, I'll piggyback off of Mike's final point there by saying one of the reasons we don't see a lot of calls for bipartisanship that turn into action bipartisanship is because, Mike, you know as well as I know that as soon as we get out of this particular shutdown crisis, the very next day, Schumer and Cory Booker and Mazie Hirono and the rest of the Democrats in the Senate, save one or two, are going to go to cameras and go, those bunch of fascist, MAGA, Nazi, blankety, blankety blanks, calling them a threat of the country that want to disappear people and take away women's rights and stick them in red robes and bonnets and all this other nonsense. And then all of a sudden it comes time for budget and reconciliation or continuing resolutions. And it's, okay, now I'm ready to work with you and things like that. Because we have started blending the performative edge of politics, like Ayanna Pressley screaming on network television, with the sensible voices inside committee, because we've blended those so closely in American politics, we are getting closer to a Canadian junior high cafeteria style parliament fight that is very uncooperative. And is the answer to that, what you and I suggest, which is, the can we please talk? Can we please find the common ground? Absolutely. But with the lack of common ground being pushed forward, especially in a lot of the current rhetoric in the climate, obviously we've talked about that at length ad nauseum, it's really harder to say, well, Americans may vote for this or want this on paper. They'll say, I want bipartisanship. But then if you ask them what that means or who needs to give up ground, the answer is never both sides need to give up ground. The answer is never, well, I want the left and the right to both come to the center and do something in the middle. It's very, very low. It's like 10% of people who answered yes on the first, and then that being the second question. And that's really disappointing and unfortunate and doesn't really spell positive, let's say, kumbaya vibes in the future.
Okay, Mike, you were talking about the blame game earlier. Will the messaging of this shutdown from either party, whether it's blame or anything else, sway public opinion in favor of either party? Any impact on the upcoming midterms?
No. I mean, Don,
he's correct.
I mean, they're both doing it. I mean, like, and back to Tony's point, right? The performative part. Tony, you left out a couple performers there, like a Nancy Mace and some of the other ones. I gotta, and this is the thing. I want the debate about the policy, right? We've come on here a bunch of times and talked about, just look at immigration, for example, right? I've mentioned this a bunch. There's a policy change. Before it was civil. Now it's being treated as criminal. Those are things that people don't understand because the devil's in the details and it's minutia stuff. But for Tony and I, we eat that type of stuff up. Then we can talk about it and debate it. Other people don't want to consume that. They want the performative part of this. They want the Nancy Mace going out there and telling you this is all Democrats' fault and to blame and stuff like that. And no admission and just going out there and doing that. And others on the left too. I'm not absolving them. So I don't want the performance element. And by the way, there's a great study being done about members of Congress that tend to go on television more versus ones that don't. And where they kind of rank and file in terms of their stature and their social presence versus ones that don't. It's a great study. I wish I knew I had it offhand of where it is. I don't know if the Pew Center did it or I forget who, but this is what we see now, where people are trying to lift themselves to the next job. I just mentioned Congressman Seth Moulton a second ago. He's running for Senate. He's not even going to be a member of Congress. He's going to challenge a seat, in the Senate. So why? Because he wants a better job, because he wants to raise his profile. So that performance element, unfortunately, it affects the American people because it affects his constituents that got him voted on. And, all that door-to-door knocking and doing all that grassroots stuff, that tends to go out the window once you get into D.C. and realize, I need to be in front of the cameras and raise my stature a little bit more, and I'll do some grandiose posturing and things like that. Thomas Massie all of a sudden is a household name. Nobody knew who Thomas Massie was 3 years ago, except for maybe that outburst with him and Jamal Bowman on the Capitol steps talking about gun control. You didn't know who Thomas Massie was. Now you know who he is because he's been on Theo Von show and things like that. The performative element needs to leave this, and I think the American people see that. So I don't think any public polling will sway one way or the other. They'll blame both of them for this shutdown.
Okay, well, we're basically out of time today. Tony, if you have anything to add quickly.
Just that when you go to a hockey game, you don't really want to see the game. You want to see fights. That's what the American people want right now. It's unfortunate. And again, just like the big, beautiful bill meant nothing really to voters, this shutdown's not going to mean anything either. And that's really bad for the opposition party come midterm.
All right. I think we can end it there. Thank you both once again. Tony, Mike, pleasure.
Thanks, guys, as always.
And now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune is talking to the media on Capitol Hill. Let's take a listen.
Clear binary choice. They can choose to keep the government open by voting for a short-term, nonpartisan, clean continuing resolution, 24 pages long, or they can vote to shut the government down. That's what we're looking at. They, as you all know, have voted during the time they had the majority 13 different times, and when Biden was in the White House, on short-term continuing resolutions, 13 different times. And so it begs the question is what's changed? And I think what's changed is President Trump is in the White House. That's what this is about. This is politics. And there isn't any substantive reason why there ought to be a government shutdown. This is something that has been done routinely, as I said, 13 different times when the Democrats had the majority. But we are not going to be held hostage for over $1 trillion in new spending on a continuing resolution, nor are we going to be held hostage to allow illegals to get free health care in a continuing resolution. These are things that they're demanding as part of their so-called negotiation. Ladies and gentlemen, there isn't anything here to negotiate. This is a routine funding resolution to keep the government open so that we can continue our appropriations work and fund the government in the old-fashioned way, which is allowing the Appropriations Committee, Democrats and Republicans, to work together as they have been. And by the way, the Democrat leader keeps talking about not consulting. The Appropriations Committee, they picked the date. Democrats and Republicans, the big four on the Appropriations Committee, were consulting. They picked the date for the continuing resolution, November the 21st. And so this has been an open process from the very beginning. This year we opened up the appropriations process, something that wasn't done when the Democrats had the majority here in the Senate. But they have a clear choice in front of them today. And I hope there are Democrats out there. This may not represent the view of their leadership, but I'm hoping there are Democrats out there who are reasonable and understand what's at stake here. And as they have articulated many times in the past, the costs associated to the American people with the government shutdown. This is totally avoidable. It is a decision they're going to have to make. And if the government shuts down, it is on the Senate Democrats. The House has acted. The President's ready to sign the bill. And all that's left is for 8 Democrats to join us in passing that bill today. Senator Barrasso.
Well, the radical wing of the Democrat Party is demanding that Chuck Schumer shut down the government. If not, they'll be held to pay. We know that Chuck Schumer has had a war room going for the last couple of months to orchestrate the shutdown. That is their plan. So he comes up with this ransom note asking for $1 trillion to just keep the government open for 4 weeks. Republicans aren't going to buy that. President Trump's not going to sign it. There's a solution, and it's a simple, clean, continuing resolution to keep the government funded for the next 7 weeks as the appropriations committees work through the process. Democrats are pretty familiar with this. They've done it 13 times when Biden was in office, and the minimum number of votes they got was 65. But Chuck Schumer continues to bow down to that liberal wing, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, The American people should not suffer the costs and the consequences of a Schumer shutdown because he is politically toxic in his own party.
All right. Good afternoon. Do you think if the president goes through and unilaterally starts to cut programs or lay people off, that will start to resonate with some of your Republican colleagues and say, hey, wait a minute, he has that authority, but these are programs or things that are important to us. Is that a risk for Republicans?
Well, it's a risk that can be totally avoided. And if you're a Democrat who on countless occasions in the past has talked about the adverse consequences, the words of the Democrat leader, harmful, painful, chaotic consequences of a government shutdown, then just vote to keep the government open. I mean, those are things that they don't control, we don't control. How a shutdown gets managed is, at this point, a hypothetical question.
But your members aren't concerned that this might backfire, and sometimes these programs come back and they say, wait a minute, that was important to my state, that was important to my district.
Our members are unified that a government shutdown is a really bad idea for all those reasons, and it's the exact reason why Democrats ought to vote to keep the government open.
Democrats have been pretty clear they're going to defeat this House CR when it comes to the floor today. What is Plan B? Will you keep on bringing this back to the floor? And do you think the House should reconvene before Tuesday to maybe move the ball?
I don't know what the House can do that they haven't already done. They passed the bill. It's a bill that's passed by the House, sitting here in the Senate, ready to be signed into law by the President. And so, no, it's up to the Senate Democrats. That's where we are. And if they decide to vote it down tonight, they're going to be the ones that have to explain at midnight tonight why the government is shut down. It's really pretty straightforward. And this is something, again, that's been routine around here for a long time until all of a sudden the far left, as Senator Barrasso pointed out, hijacked the Democrat leadership here in the Senate, and they've decided to hijack the American people and hold them hostage to try and get a laundry list, a wish list, a Christmas list of their left-wing priorities attached, in their case, to a 4-week continuing resolution. Ours is 7 weeks, but they'll have the same leverage 7 weeks from now that they have today. And as I've said before, we're happy to sit down with them and talk about the concerns they have, the issues they have with, for example, the premium tax credits. But you got to do that. You can't do that in the context of a hostage situation. They need to release the hostage.
If there is a shutdown.
Major crisis, no market in China, high input costs, low prices, and they are in a bind and going to need some additional help. Now, on top of that, they're facing a shutdown.
Right, and that's why we need to keep the government open. I'm just saying, the farm service agencies in my state, the Federal Highway Administration employees in my state or any of the other states, and my colleagues who are represented here, the Park Service employees in our state, these are all people that are going to be affected by this, and not to mention our military men and women, our men and women in uniform. So this is a totally avoidable crisis, and again, we are not going to be held hostage by the Democrats for more than $1 trillion in new spending, and all kinds of other items on their liberal wish list to include free health care for illegal immigrants in this country. That is all part of what can be avoided if they simply vote yes tonight.
Are you ruling out negotiations with Democrats if there's a shutdown? Are you ruling out any negotiations with Democrats if there is a shutdown?
The negotiation happens when the government's open. So let's keep the government open, and then we will have the negotiation. I've said it. I've said it yesterday at the meeting in the White House. I've said it to my Democrat colleagues. We're happy to sit down and talk about these other issues that they're interested in, but it should not have anything to do with whether or not, for a 7-week period, we keep the federal government open so that this government can continue to do its work and that we can continue to do our work through the regular appropriations process to fund the government. This is not complicated. It's something that's happened routinely around here for a long time, including the 13 times it happened when the Democrats had the majority. So it's a binary choice. They get a chance to make that vote today, and I'm hoping, I sincerely do hope, in the best interest of the American people, that the Democrats here in Washington decide to keep our federal government open. Thank you.
Your impression?
And you were just watching Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill reiterating that if the government shuts down at 12 a.m., it is because Democrats refuse to vote for the continuing resolution. All right, taking a break. The FBI sent hundreds of agents to the U.S. Capitol and nearby locations on January 6, 2021, according to an after-action report. We discussed with the national political reporter for the Epoch Times. Don't go away.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
A new report reveals the amount of FBI presence at the U.S. Capitol and nearby locations on January 6, 2021. Joining us now to discuss is Nathan Wooster, national political reporter for the Epoch Times. Good afternoon to you, Nathan. So the report says over 270 FBI agents were deployed to Washington on January 6, 2021. Where exactly were they sent?
Well, they were sent to multiple locations. Some of them were sent to the Capitol itself, others to the Capitol grounds. And then there were others who were dispatched to 2 pipe bombs that were discovered outside of the headquarters of both the RNC and the DNC. And finally, there were some dispatched to a red truck where the components of Molotov cocktails were located. And this ultimately led to a 46-month sentence for a 72-year-old Army vet, Lonnie Leroy Kaufman, from Alabama, in connection with what was found in that truck.
What specific incidents did the FBI agents respond to that day? Can you talk to us about that beyond the breach of the Capitol itself?
Yes, so the discovery of those pipe bombs on January 6th was part of what I think we can describe as a fairly chaotic day. Again, you have disputes over what exactly happened at various points. Kash Patel, FBI director, has said that specifically when it comes to these FBI agents who were deployed in connection with what was happening at the Capitol, that was after the Metro Police declared a riot. And so, in his words, they were thrown into something of a crowd control role.
And how many confidential human sources were documented as being in Washington on January 6th, and how many entered the Capitol?
So there were at least 26 that we know of, and this would be confidential human sources, people who were essentially, not FBI agents, but working undercover in a sense, being sources. Some of them were there in connection with domestic terror case suspects. Some of those entered the Capitol, and then others who were not also entered the Capitol. And then we had a large number who also entered the Capitol grounds. So I believe 4 total of the ones that we know about from the FBI. And then there were a number out of the 26 who also entered the Capitol grounds, were part of the chaos that we saw that day.
Can you talk to us about what are the similarities or differences between the 2024 Inspector General's findings and the after action report?
So the IG report, it does go into detail about some things. For example, it states that there were hundreds of special agents deployed, but we didn't get a specific number as we got from this after action report. And perhaps the most telling element of the after action report, we have a lot of detail, raw intelligence, you might say, feedback from agents themselves, anonymous feedback on what they saw, and frankly, a lot of shortcomings that they identified with, I would say, the nature of the mission itself, and then with specific ways that it was carried out.
And Nathan, what concerns did some FBI agents express about political bias within the Bureau?
This was a consistent theme. And I should say, not all of it seemed to run in a particular direction. There was, for example, at least one comment from an anonymous agent, I believe, who said that they felt that there was an attempt that they felt to be inappropriate to act as though this was equivalent to the protests and riots that we saw in the summer of 2020. But then you had people who I think were commenting from a different perspective, really questioning whether the agency was demonstrating a capacity to be impartial in upholding the law. You had someone even stating that the basis of the republic, which is what FBI agents should be working to uphold, is in question if the transparency of elections is in question. I think this goes to not perhaps universal, but what appears based on this to have been a relatively widespread dissatisfaction with what they saw as politicization of law enforcement. Again, this is not just, say, lawmakers talking about this or commentators, but from what we can ascertain, the after-action feedback of people who were deployed in connection with January 6th from the FBI.
Can you expand on the point that some comments contrasted the FBI's handling of January 6th with its response to the 2020 protests and riots?
Yes, I think there was a sense from at least some people who were responding. And again, I should stress that there were a diversity of perspectives. Not everybody felt the same way about this, but there was a view that, at least from one comment that I can recall quite vividly, there had been a very different approach when it came to political expression that crossed that line from protests or demonstrations, free speech, into something more chaotic and violent, and that there was double standard, hypocrisy, something that I believe one commentator said that he had his issues with both what happened on January 6th and also with those protests and riots in the summer of 2020, but that the perception of a double standard was seriously undermining the FBI's mission and the perception that it has to foster to be legitimate as a neutral arbiter, as a really credible upholder of the law.
Is there anything to add about how FBI Director Kash Patel responded when details of the after-action report became public?
Well, I think it's worth emphasizing that initially, when some of these numbers were first publicized, the 274 agents, I think there may have been a perception that this only perhaps referred to the Capitol itself, and there was a question as to what were these agents doing. There was even speculation that perhaps they had been there as agitators. But according to Director Patel, they were there in this crowd control role. And I think it's worth getting into some of the language here. It seems as though they were plainclothes, that this would be consistent with the Inspector General's report from 2024, which stated that there were no undercover agents as such. Again, we have the caveat about all of the confidential human sources. And I think the question that just about anybody who could put themselves in the shoes of people who were there might ask, were these obviously people engaged in crowd control as law enforcement, or was that less clear? And I am hoping that there will be more answers on that in the future.
Well, okay, Nathan, good to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Don. Glad to be on.
A tale of two states. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle violent crime, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushes back against federal agents. Stay tuned for that when we come back from this break.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes. Look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
The Trump administration is moving to block Harvard University from receiving federal funding, citing alleged civil rights violations. HHS says Harvard failed to address anti-Semitic harassment on campus following last year's Hamas terror attack on Israel, violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. HHS has referred the university for formal administrative proceedings, which could result in the loss of funding or government-wide blocks on federal contracts. Officials say this step ensures taxpayer dollars are protected and compliance is enforced. A federal judge ruled earlier this year that the Trump administration had violated the First Amendment. The court said Harvard was already taking steps to address concerns and protect free speech rights on campus. A federal judge blocks Trump administration layoffs. A Washington court yesterday ordered a pause to the firings of hundreds of employees connected to Voice of America. District Judge Royce Lamberth halted the plan while he determines whether the Agency for Global Media complied with an injunction he issued in April. The injunction ordered it to fulfill its statutory mandate that VOA serve as a consistently reliable and authoritative source of news. The layoffs would affect more than 530 jobs for full-time staff, representing most of the agency's remaining employees. VOA broadcasts were abruptly shut down in March under an executive order from President Trump. The VOA was founded in 1942 to counter Nazi propaganda. It reached 360 million people in a week in 2024. Louisiana says it needs help. Governor Jeff Landry is asking Washington for assistance in tackling a violent crime surge across the state. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on that, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back on any federal agents in his state.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry announced he has formally asked for federal assistance to activate up to 1,000 Louisiana National Guard members, speaking on Fox News.
Who would not want help in combating criminals on your streets? Who does not want their communities in their cities to be safe?
Landry said there were ongoing public safety concerns regarding high crime rates throughout the state. The Republican governor says police officers are overwhelmed by the number of homicides, carjackings, and gang violence.
President Trump has amassed the best cabinet of public servants and folks who really want to fight crime, like General Bondi, Secretary Noem, FBI Director Kash Patel. These folks know how to keep Americans safe.
The National Guard soldiers are expected to supplement law enforcement in high crime areas, provide logistical and communication support, and secure critical infrastructure.
The troops are happy to come. Remember, the National Guard are citizen soldiers. They are members. They are the fabric of our communities. They're our neighbors. They're our sons. They're our daughters.
In 2024, Louisiana recorded 520 violent crimes and nearly 2,300 property crimes per 100,000 residents, rates nearly 45% and 30% higher than the national averages. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is singing a different tune. Pritzker on Monday described Homeland Security's request for 100 troops to the state to back up ICE agents in Chicago as sowing fear, intimidation, and division among Americans. Pritzker said, quote, "With one voice, we are telling this unwarranted and unconstitutional occupation to get out of Chicago." Tensions flared last Friday outside an ICE processing facility in Broadville, Illinois. More than 200 protesters gathered near the gate in front of the facility, while dozens more crowded another entrance, chanting, "Arrest ICE, shoot ICE." Federal agents made at least 17 arrests and confiscated a gun from one rioter who was apprehended at the scene. And the Justice Department is suing Minnesota. It accuses the state and several local governments of using sanctuary policies that block immigration enforcement. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the policies defy federal law and put residents at risk. Similar lawsuits have recently been filed against New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. Bondi wrote on X Monday that the rule of law will prevail. The Attorney General says the DOJ is deploying agents to protect ICE facilities, arrest violent agitators on the spot, and bring the strongest federal charges possible. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The family of a man shot at a Dallas ICE facility last week says he has died. The shooting last Wednesday originally left one man dead and two other detainees critically wounded. Miguel Garcia Hernandez is now the second victim killed in last week's attack. Authorities say the gunman fired indiscriminately from a nearby rooftop. The 29-year-old then fatally shot himself after opening fire. The attack occurred amid increasing violence against immigration officers carrying out deportations. Authorities say the suspect hated the U.S. government and wanted to incite terror by killing federal agents. The devastating shooting on a church at Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Chapel left a small Michigan community shattered. 2 days after the tragedy, investigators continue combing through the burned-out building for evidence and clues as to what led to the assault. Here are the details on the investigation and the attacker.
Evil.
This was an evil act of violence. That's exactly what this was.
The investigation into the deadly attack that killed 4 people and left 8 others injured at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan continues, with police saying everyone has been accounted for. Authorities confirm that improvised explosive devices were found at the scene by a bomb squad after discovering a suspicious item on church property. The attack started just after 10 Sunday morning. Investigators say the gunman rammed his pickup truck into the front door of the church, then began shooting at worshipers with an assault rifle before setting the building on fire. Police say the 40-year-old gunman, Thomas Jacob Sanford, an Iraq War veteran, died in a shootout with police 8 minutes after the first emergency call. And investigators say he had been arrested in the past for burglary and OWI, or operating a vehicle while intoxicated. While the motive remains under investigation, the White House says the attack appeared to be motivated by religious hatred.
Based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith.
A city council candidate, Chris Johns, says he spoke to Sanford just days before the attack while campaigning in his neighborhood.
He asked me about, what do you think about guns? And after that, it really took a very sharp turn into, he goes, the next question was, what do you know about Mormons?
President Trump says he's giving Hamas terrorists only a few days to accept his Gaza peace plan. That's the 20-point plan he announced yesterday to end the fighting in the enclave.
We're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas, and Hamas is either going to be doing it or not, and if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
Trump added that the main points for Hamas are to give back all remaining hostages and to stop the fighting, but the president warned that if Hamas doesn't agree, then the U.S. will let Israel continue its military campaign in Gaza. Israel has long said it wants to completely eradicate Hamas. Trump said that Israel's military killed 25,000 Hamas fighters since the October 7th attacks. The president also highlighted that Hamas leadership has been eliminated 3 times since then. Eric Trump has unveiled the future location of his father's presidential library. He shared on X that in a unanimous vote, the Florida cabinet approved the land conveyance in Miami. Governor Ron DeSantis said the state is donating the property for the library, which he said would be good for Miami and Florida. The 2.5-acre property has waterfront views. It is currently being used as an employee parking lot at Miami-Dade College. A real estate consultant told the New York Times the lot has an appraised value of about $66 million, but could sell for 5 times that. In Eric Trump's post, he added that this will be one of the most beautiful buildings ever built, an icon on the Miami skyline. A screening program designed to stop terrorism is allegedly used to surveil ordinary Americans. A Senate committee holds a hearing on it today. Find out more after the break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretane Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Come in now for 65th anniversary savings all over the store. Like this oversized sofa in an ultra soft fabric with thick premium gel cushions and 5 throw pillows. Anniversary priced at just $9.99. That's an incredible value. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out on 65th anniversary savings happening now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents. You think you created family out of characters? Yeah, of course. I'm gonna take that, make it into a song.
Me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at on the way out? In my head, in my head, in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump announcing that this major pharmaceutical company will be cutting drug costs. How this might impact what you pay for prescription drugs. President Trump, speaking to top military brass today, says America is being invaded from within. That's as he increases defense spending and raises military combat standards. A Senate committee today heard witness testimony about a screening program designed to mitigate terrorism that's allegedly being used to surveil ordinary Americans. The U.S. government is on track for a shutdown tonight at midnight. After a White House meeting failed to get Democrats on board, we have the latest. A tale of two states. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle violent crime, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushes back against federal agents.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump in the Oval Office announcing that Pfizer will heavily discount their medications for Americans. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu, who's at the White House. Good afternoon, Mari. What is the latest from the president's Oval Office announcement today?
Don, good afternoon. Yes, just moments ago, President Trump today in the Oval Office is announcing that Pfizer will provide some of their most popular medications at heavily discounted prices for Americans, which means up to between 50 and 100% off. And that any new medications introduced into the U.S. market will be sold at the reduced most favored nation cost. This means that Pfizer will match American drug prices to the lowest drug price paid by any other developed nations. President Trump also says these drugs will be available on a federal website called trumprx.gov, which the administration hopes will launch in early 2026. The president also had this to say about Medicaid. Watch.
Today, Pfizer is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid, and it will be at the most favored nation's prices. It's going to have a huge impact on bringing Medicaid costs down like nothing else.
Today's announcement comes after President Trump in May signed an executive order directing drug makers to start offering U.S. patients the most favored nation pricing for their medicines. However, unhappy with the progress made by July, President Trump then sent 17 letters to CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies demanding that they lower drug prices to match those paid by other wealthy nations by September 29th, which was yesterday. And now today, Pfizer is responding to that demand. Here's FDA Commissioner Marty Makary and HHS Secretary RFK Jr. on today's announcement. Watch.
And today marks the beginning of the end of the Great American Ripoff. And it also marks the beginning and the end of a great American tragedy, something I've seen as a physician at the bedside.
We refuse to make the most vulnerable citizens continue to pay an unthinkable price for the world's pharmaceutical breakthroughs, which we pay for. No family should ever be forced to choose between filling a prescription and putting food on the table. Americans should not be gouged paying 300 or 400 or 1,000% more than people in other countries for the exact same drug.
Pfizer is also announcing a $70 billion investment in American pharmaceutical research and to reshore domestic manufacturing facilities. Pfizer will be given a 3-year grace period exempt from President Trump's pharmaceutical tariffs as long as they move all of their production to the U.S. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. Senator Schumer at the Capitol Hill talking to media. Let's tune in.
Law that we passed does not fund health insurance for undocumented immigrants in Medicaid, period, nor the ACA, nor Medicare. Undocumented immigrants do not get federal health insurance premiums, period. Period. They're lying. I hope you'll call them on it when they bring it up. Some of the newspapers have. Okay? I said this directly to Speaker Johnson in the Oval Office. I told him what he was saying was bull, because he said, you guys want that. And he just smirked and didn't even answer. And why are they lying? They know how unpopular their position is on health care, that they shouldn't talk about it. Republicans know perfectly well that undocumented immigrants are already prohibited, as I said, from getting insurance on ACA, Medicare, or Medicaid. They know perfectly well not a single sentence or clause or comma that we're pushing in our bill does that, but they're lying because they know they're screwed if this debate turns into one about health care. And guess what? That's just what we are doing. We are making this debate a debate on health care. If you want an indication of how serious Republicans are about keeping the government open, who wants the shutdown? There's no better proof than the fact that Speaker Johnson sent everybody home this week, ensuring a shutdown no matter what the Senate did. So don't argue who wants the shutdown. It's Johnson. And when we asked President Trump to meet with us, Hakeem and I, by all reports, it was Johnson who made him pull the meeting back. Pull the meeting back. And if you want another indication, and so, by the way, so the House Republicans should be here, but they're home. If you want another indication of how serious Republicans are about funding the government, look no further than the deepfake AI video the president tried to put up last night after our meeting, when we were actually trying to fund the government. His video was dumb, it was childish, it was petty. It's something that a 5-year-old would do. Not a president of the United States, but it shows how unserious they are. They don't give a damn about the harm they will cause with their shutdown. Now, Republicans have until midnight to cut the garbage and get serious with us about solving the health care crisis. When I was majority leader, this is what I did with Thune's chart this morning. He had all these years that we passed CRs. We passed budget bills. We did. You know why? As leader, I sat down with the Republicans every one of those years and created a bipartisan bill. Their bill is partisan. They call it clean. We call it partisan. It has no Democratic input. Thune never talked to me. Johnson never talked to Hakeem. And now Thune is saying, well, the appropriators are working at it. As Patty will tell you, they are trying to work out some budget bills. But the two issues they couldn't decide were health care and rescissions, impoundment, pocket rescissions. And they all agreed the 4 leaders should decide that. And that's when we wrote Thune, and that's when we wrote Johnson. And they never even met with us. So that's why we were able to avoid shutdowns, because we did it in a bipartisan way. They are partisan totally, with no input from us. So, as Republicans continue to lie, distract, duck, hide, Democrats remain ready to get to work, negotiate a bipartisan agreement, and keep the government funded. Senator Murray. I'm going to take all my papers here.
And that was Democratic Minority Senate Leader Chuck Schumer saying that the continuing resolution, which Republicans call clean, Schumer says is actually partisan. He says there's no Democratic input on that continuing resolution. All right, moving on. The devastating shooting on a church at Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Chapel left a small Michigan community shattered. 2 days after the tragedy, investigators continue combing through the burned-out building for evidence and clues as to what led to the assault. Here are the details on the investigation and the attacker.
Evil. This was an evil act of violence. That's exactly what this was.
The investigation into the deadly attack that killed 4 people and left 8 others injured at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan continues, with police saying everyone has been accounted for. Authorities confirm that improvised explosive devices were found at the scene by a bomb squad after discovering a suspicious item on church property. The attack started just after 10 Sunday morning. Investigators say the gunman rammed his pickup truck into the front door of the church, then began shooting at worshipers with an assault rifle before setting the building on fire. Police say the 40-year-old gunman, Thomas Jacob Sanford, an Iraq War veteran, died in a shootout with police 8 minutes after the first emergency call. And investigators say he had been arrested in the past for burglary and OWI, or operating a vehicle while intoxicated. While the motive remains under investigation, the White House says the attack appeared to be motivated by religious hatred.
Based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith.
A city council candidate, Chris Johns, says he spoke to Sanford just days before the attack while campaigning in his neighborhood.
He asked me about, what do you think about guns? And after that, it really took a very sharp turn into, he goes, the next question was, what do you know about Mormons?
Joining us now is Ammon Blair, a Latter-day Saints church member and senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Ammon, thank you for joining us today. So the full motives of the shooter still unknown as of right now, but White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said yesterday that from speaking with the FBI, it's thought that the shooter hated Mormons, and the suspect was a former Marine. What could have led to him being radicalized in this way in order to commit such an act?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so we actually see this around the world. We saw this during Nazi Germany. You can read the book. There was a great book that talked about a reserve police battalion of military police, that they were just fathers, your everyday citizens, and they were radicalized into becoming one of the most ferocious men alive, killing women and children during World War II. And the book is called Ordinary Men. This radicalization process happens throughout the world, whether that's going to be Islamic violent extremists that we saw in fighting the Middle East, or even homegrown domestic terrorists that we're seeing in Antifa, and communists as well. And there's a certain process where certain thoughts start leading to personal beliefs, and those beliefs then lead to actions. And unfortunately, his personal beliefs at this time, just as what the White House stated, led to violent action and to really a terrorist attack on our religion.
So as you know, Ammon, President Trump condemned the Michigan attack as part of an epidemic of violence against Christians. Why are we seeing more and more attacks against people of faith, it appears?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you one thing, and I want to quote Charlie Kirk, the late great Charlie Kirk, and he said, "You can tell a lot about a person by how they react when someone dies." On Sunday, I do want to highlight that the president of our church, President Russell M. Nelson, died. And so shortly after his death, this terrorist attack happened. And then to go to your question, look, at the end of the day, what we're seeing in the streets is direct action led by a communist agenda. Communists, their entire goal is the destruction of everything. It's just total destruction. And it is the greatest, religious cult of our time in terms of the amount of destruction and death ravaging the world. And communism is the antithesis of Christianity. So really what you're seeing is a global rise of communism itself. in the idea that, or this false understanding that there can be a complete utopian, but that complete utopia typically means, through a communist eyes, the destruction of everything else.
Yeah, that's a good point about communism. It is directly opposite of religion, because the way I see it, religious views are about unity, right? About seeing all people as children of God, and that includes believers and non-believers. Do you think that perhaps some media sources report on these attacks irresponsibly, which increases division among the public? Can you talk about that aspect?
Yes, sir. Great question. And unfortunately, just like how I quoted Charlie Kirk, after our president's death, President Trump reached out to our community and then talked about it on social media, talking about President Nelson as a great Christian leader. Instead of people reaching out to like Glenn Beck and those that are prominent in social media and saying their condolences and saying they're sorry, they started attacking our faith as not Christian. And started to form division on social media, even within the conservative groups and Republicans alike. We're seeing this everywhere in the United States. To be honest, this whole idea and concept of tribes and tribalism, we're seeing it on the streets where we're seeing illegal aliens, or we're seeing the rule of law being separated based off of your ideology or identity. This tribalism is starting to destroy and erode our society. And that faction within our society then typically leads to destruction, chaos, and violence. We're seeing that in the streets of LA, just as we saw it at our church in Michigan.
And what about social media? I mean, some can argue that it also plays a big role. What part does the internet play in stoking the flames of division on how different religious groups are viewed by the public?
Yeah, great question. So right now, I mean, we're at a war for awareness in the social media. So just like any other company is going to utilize social media as a means to push their propaganda or their ideas or anything they know. And so they understand the algorithms, how algorithms work, how our mind works. So they're going to touch on things that may touch our values in ethics, and try to persuade us into either believing certain things that we may not believe politically. To give you an example, like illegal immigration for one, the idea to show only family members and children, and we saw this at the border, to try to inculcate guilt in the average American citizen, so that way we accept millions of illegal aliens inside the United States. And that's going to be pushed across all of social media platforms, just the images and the videos of just refugees, asylum seekers, and that nature. So that way we have this broad concept and an idea, thinking that, wow, this must be the only thing that is happening at our border, the only thing that is happening on the interior, and that we shouldn't conduct border security or conduct mass deportations. So this can go hand in hand, how social media has been completely weaponized to propagandize the average American citizen.
But do you think there is a path forward, in light of social media, in light of media representations? How can we move forward from an attack like this to bring about greater unity between people of different beliefs?
Yeah, I think understanding. So Trump today came out when he was talking to the generals and admirals, and he said he had two favorite words. One was tariffs, but he said the other one was merit. The whole idea and concept of merit, and the whole idea and concept of being unified under the umbrella of liberty. What made this country great? The assimilation, for us to assimilate together for the principles that are vouchsafed within our Constitution. So for every social media post that goes out there to spread hate and division, there needs to be 10 times that to spread the truth, to spread the principles vouchsafed within our Constitution. There needs to be this war within our narrative space. We need to win the battles on social media. Social media can be a great thing. It can also be a horrible thing. But we just need to make sure that those great things completely outnumber and outclass those that are trying to divide us as a nation.
Okay, Ammon, I just have one more question, and I think it's relevant to our discussion today. And as you know, President Trump is aiming to bring a resurgence of religion in America, right? So in your view, how important is this focus on religious freedom by the current administration?
Yeah, great question. So, one, the Constitution of the United States was built by men with the grand understanding that we as a nation and as a people will only have a constitutional republic based off of if we are a moral society. Those morals are God-given. They're not created by the government themselves, just as our rights, our unalienable rights, are God-given. They were not created by the government. So the ideas and concepts that are vouchsafed in the Constitution itself is really what Trump is aiming at. Those freedoms, the ability to have agency, and choosing the right thing to have the ultimate level of freedom, which is liberty. That can only be done when we also have religious freedoms, that every single one of our liberties that we go and protect are completely safeguarded. And so the President Trump right now, as he's about to try to go out and maintain in the world, maintain a presence of strength and deterrence inside the United States, the same thing. The presence of strength and deterrence for our constitutional and the presence and strength of our unalienable rights that are vouchsafed by this Constitution. I think President Trump is doing a really great job, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to work with him as well as the state of Texas at the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Okay, Ammon, great discussion today. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth speak to hundreds of top U.S. military leaders. Trump says for too long the U.S. has been focused on external wars while it's being invaded from within. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
That defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia, while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within.
President Trump says America is being invaded from within, no different from a foreign enemy, but without uniforms. Trump made those comments on Tuesday, speaking to hundreds of generals, admirals, and senior enlisted troops at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia. He touted the use of deploying troops to Los Angeles and then to D.C., which led to a major drop in crime there. He also discussed plans for deployments in Chicago and Portland, Oregon.
We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military, because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city. Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone.
Trump also highlighted improved military recruiting and retention, as well as an increase in defense spending.
We're investing tens of billions of dollars in modernizing our nuclear deterrence capabilities like never before. And we've begun construction on what we call the Golden Dome missile defense shield. It'll be the most sophisticated in the world.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also spoke to the military brass, emphasizing the shift in military culture with stricter standards.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a four-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test.
He also directed that all troops in combat roles will have to meet the highest male standards.
But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is.
Hegseth also defended his firing of many military officials that allowed these policies to flourish at the department, especially ones regarding accusations of wrongdoing, which he says have morphed into a policy of walking on eggshells.
No more frivolous complaints, no more anonymous complaints.
Both Trump and Hegseth promised that these sweeping changes are imminent. And President Trump signed an executive order in early September renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War, a title it held since George Washington all the way until just after World War II. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
The DHS announces that it found evidence of Biden administration officials weaponizing the TSA against political opponents. An internal investigation uncovers widespread abuses targeting innocent Americans. According to the DHS report, the Biden TSA used the January 6th Capitol breach to watch list and harass several dozen Americans. This was despite there being no evidence of wrongdoing or illegal behavior and no clear threat to aviation security. The campaign continued through June 2021. The report also said Biden TSA officials systematically watch-listed and denied boarding to those who resisted mask mandates on airplanes. This came nearly 6 months after the CDC relaxed its indoor mask mandate. The DHS has referred the case to the Justice Department and Congress for further investigation. The department also removed 5 senior leaders from their positions. Coming up, ICE arrests over 400 illegal aliens in Central Florida. The Department of Homeland Security says agents targeted individuals with outstanding criminal warrants. A tale of two states. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry calls for federal help to tackle violent crime, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushes back against federal agents. That and more after this break.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay?
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
An ICE operation last week led to the arrest of more than 400 illegal aliens in Central Florida. The Department of Homeland Security said agents targeted aliens with outstanding criminal warrants and individuals subject to deportation. According to DHS, the arrests included those charged and convicted of lewd and lascivious behavior, battery, domestic violence, prostitution, vehicle theft, hit and run, and driving under the influence. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, quote, "This was another successful operation to arrest the worst of the worst." McLaughlin added that the operation could, quote, "serve as a blueprint nationwide." Louisiana says it needs help. Governor Jeff Landry is asking Washington for assistance in tackling a violent crime surge across the state. And Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back on any federal agents in his state. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry announced he has formally asked for federal assistance to activate up to 1,000 Louisiana National Guard members, speaking on Fox News.
Who would not want help in combating criminals on your streets? Who does not want their communities in their cities to be safe?
Landry said there were ongoing public safety concerns regarding high crime rates throughout the state. The Republican governor says police officers are overwhelmed by the number of homicides, carjackings, and gang violence.
President Trump has amassed the best cabinet of public servants and folks who really want to fight crime, like General Bondi, Secretary Noem, FBI Director Kash Patel. These folks know how to keep Americans safe.
The National Guard soldiers are expected to supplement law enforcement in high crime areas, provide logistical and communication support, and secure critical infrastructure.
The troops are happy to come. Remember, the National Guard are citizen soldiers. They are members. They are the fabric of our communities. They're our neighbors. They're our sons. They're our daughters.
In 2024, Louisiana recorded 520 violent crimes and nearly 2,300 property crimes per 100,000 residents, rates nearly 45% and 30% higher than the national averages. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is singing a different tune. Pritzker on Monday described Homeland Security's request for 100 troops to the state to back up ICE agents in Chicago as sowing fear, intimidation, and division among Americans. Pritzker said, quote, "With one voice, we are telling this unwarranted and unconstitutional occupation to get out of Chicago." Tensions flared last Friday outside an ICE processing facility in Broadville, Illinois. More than 200 protesters gathered near the gate in front of the facility, while dozens more crowded another entrance, chanting, "Arrest ICE! Shoot ICE!" Federal agents made at least 17 arrests and confiscated a gun from one rioter who was apprehended at the scene. And the Justice Department is suing Minnesota. It accuses the state and several local governments of using sanctuary policies that block immigration enforcement. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the policies defy federal law and put residents at risk. Similar lawsuits have recently been filed against New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. Bondi wrote on X Monday that the rule of law will prevail. The Attorney General says the DOJ is deploying agents to protect ICE facilities, arrest violent agitators on the spot, and bring the strongest federal charges possible. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump has announced a new round of tariffs. Trump yesterday signed a proclamation imposing new duties on imported timber, lumber, and furniture. Starting October 14th, new U.S. tariffs will hit the wood products sector. 10% on lumber and 25% on furniture, with sharp increases coming next year. In January 2026, duties on upholstered wood products will climb to 30%, and kitchen cabinets and vanities will soar to 50%, targeting imports from countries without U.S. trade deals. The White House says the move will strengthen supply chains, boost industrial resilience, and create high-quality jobs. President Trump added that the tariffs would spur investment, drive innovation, and increase domestic production, especially for industries vital to national defense, noting the U.S. military spends over $10 billion a year on construction projects. Officials argue the policy is needed to stop losing market share to Chinese furniture imports, which the Commerce Department has deemed a national security threat. But critics in the furniture industry warn the tariffs could disrupt supply chains and raise prices for American consumers. Eric Trump has unveiled the future location of his father's presidential library. He shared on X that in a unanimous vote, the Florida cabinet approved the land convenience in Miami. Governor Ron DeSantis said the state is donating the property for the library, which he said would be good for Miami and Florida. The 2.5-acre property has waterfront views. It is currently being used as an employee parking lot at Miami-Dade College. A real estate consultant told the New York Times the lot has an appraised value of about $66 million, but could sell for 5 times that. In Eric Trump's post, he added that this will be one of the most beautiful buildings ever built, an icon on the Miami skyline. Antifa is now designated a domestic terrorist organization. Mark Trammell, CEO at the Center for American Liberty, joins us to break down President Trump's latest efforts to crack down on Antifa and similar groups. Stay tuned.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, is returning to Utah today for its college tour. This will be the first event in the state since the co-founder was assassinated at Utah Valley University. The event will take place at Utah State University, which is about 120 miles north of where Kirk was killed. The event will feature conservative podcast host Alex Clark and a panel with Senator Mike Lee, Representative Andy Biggs, former Representative Jason Chaffetz, and Governor Spencer Cox. Since Kirk's murder, the youth organization has seen a surge in interest across the nation. There have been tens of thousands of requests to launch new chapters at high schools and colleges. Turning Point USA is now overseen by Kirk's widow, Erica, and Kirk's former aides and friends. Joining us now to discuss President Trump's new actions to clamp down on Antifa and other domestic terrorist groups is Mark Trammell, CEO at the Center for American Liberty and an attorney. Good afternoon, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, Mark. So how much of an impact do you think this will have in rooting out political violence? This, all of government effort against domestic political violence, and it calls for coordination, as you already know, among the DOJ, DHS, the Treasury, and state and local agencies.
Yeah, so I think this is, not just a good executive order. I think this is a great executive order. Through our work at the Center for American Liberty, we've been representing a journalist named Andy Ngo for years because of Antifa violence. Antifa, years ago, brutally assaulted Andy not once but twice in the streets of Portland, leaving him with brain hemorrhages. And while the elected officials in Portland did nothing to defend Andy as a victim or to advocate for him as a victim of this crime, it left the Center for American Liberty to file this lawsuit seeking financial damages. So I would applaud the president for doing this, because what he's doing is he's doing exactly what he was elected to do, right? He's protecting the physical safety of the American people and the liberties that are promised through the Constitution. It's unfortunate that local officials are abdicating their duties, but I'm very grateful that this president is stepping in to protect the American people.
So you mentioned you're representing Andy Ngo, right? In light of that, can you talk to us about how does Antifa keep evading accountability?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a multifaceted process, right? So there's really not arrests taking place, and I don't blame law enforcement for that phenomenon. In places like Portland, prosecutors, these are elected positions generally across the country, prosecutors refuse to prosecute Antifa for their lawless crimes. And when mayors and other elected officials are marching in the streets with members of Antifa, law enforcement has really no incentive to put their lives at risk to stop these violent terrorist thugs in the streets. If they're going to risk their lives to arrest someone, only to have prosecutors null pros the case, why take that risk, right? And so here, now that federal agencies are going to get involved, that they'll investigate, that they'll dismantle illegal operations, these terrorist operations by Antifa, the result is going to be a much safer America.
So under current U.S. law, how is domestic terrorism defined? How does that work when President Trump is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization?
Yeah, well, I think what's key here is that it's providing leadership and instruction to agencies that you just mentioned, right? To the FBI, to the DOJ, to be involved really on a more localized level in protecting the rights and the liberties of the American people. I think if law enforcement agents in these local communities, right, if prosecutors in Portland were doing their job, then the president wouldn't have to take this act to protect the American people. But they've abdicated their duties, and they've left the president with quite a mess to clean up. So we're very grateful at the Center for American Liberty that the president is doing this. Just this morning I saw on social media images again of Antifa chasing down journalists in the streets of Portland. And so I think, there's a huge story here in what the president is doing to protect the American people. There's a huge story that's not being talked about. And it's ironic, right? It's that the media, legacy media organizations are ignoring this. And in some cases, when they do cover it, they're actually criticizing President Trump for taking these actions. It's very ironic. The actions that he is taking are actually protecting their First Amendment rights as journalists. Something that Antifa, if you report negatively of Antifa, you become a target. Look at the streets of Portland, the graffiti with Andy Ngo's name on it, it's everywhere.
And you're right, some have criticized President Trump for doing this. Some are arguing that Antifa is closer to, a leaderless movement than an organized terrorist group. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, Antifa is certainly an ideology. I think President Biden described Antifa as an ideology, but it's not merely an ideology. It's an ideology with legs, right? And it's it's a radical terrorist ideology that's being inflicted in streets across the country. And so, again, this is a very, very good act of leadership from the White House. And the result is going to be the American people being much safer. We're seeing what the president's leadership is doing in the city of Washington. And we're it looks like about to see that play out in other cities across the country.
You know, this is something interesting that I've pondered about. Can you comment on this? Does the First Amendment have protections for free association, even with Antifa?
So the First Amendment absolutely protects the right of association, right? That's certainly encompassed in it. I think what's important to remember is that this executive order does not infringe upon your right of association. It does not infringe upon Antifa's ability to protest peacefully in the streets. The executive order expressly is targeted toward criminal activity. It actually says illegal operations. It's the operative language from the executive order. So I think the White House was very careful in drafting this executive order so that it wouldn't be applied as a suppression of protected First Amendment activity, but rather as a law enforcement mechanism to give the federal agencies involved the resources that they need to keep the American people safe, and to do so in a constitutionally respectful manner.
So as we already know, on the bullet casings that were fired against Charlie Kirk, there were anti-fascist messages on them, right? How can Americans and government push back against radical ideologies in today's digital environment?
Yeah, you know, I think the answer is more speech. You know, I think when we self-censor, it gives organizations and ideologies like Antifa a tremendous amount of power. But if we continue to call out Antifa for what it is, and it itself is a fascist organization that uses force and threats of force to intimidate the American people, to suppress the exercising of First Amendment rights, when we continue to call it out for what it is, it actually gives the American people a tremendous amount of power, and it pushes back against the self-censorship that Antifa wants. So again, I think here the solution, just from our perspective, right? What can just an average American, what can we do? It's to continue to talk. It's to continue to engage in dialogue, to be honest about it, what Antifa is actually doing. I think the answer is more speech.
Yeah, very well said today, Mark. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks again.
The U.S. will deport hundreds of Iranians in the coming weeks. What the program includes, we have that story and more after this break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Iran's foreign ministry says the United States will deport hundreds of Iranians in the coming weeks. The Trump administration has not yet confirmed the deportations. The potential deportations come amid heightened tensions between the two countries following the U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear sites in June. Meanwhile, the United Nations reimposed sanctions on Iran this past week over its nuclear program. Iran's state television reported that the 400 Iranians would be deported as part of a deal with the U.S. An official with Iran's foreign ministry reportedly said a majority had crossed into the U.S. from Mexico illegally. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg says supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine will be a game changer. Kyiv has requested the missiles from Washington, which would give them the ability to directly target Moscow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
The weapon system is, in fact, by itself, to me, it's a game changer, only because how good it is.
Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is attending the Warsaw Security Conference on Tuesday. He praises the capability of Tomahawk missiles, which Ukraine has requested from the US. The missiles have a reach of over 1,500 miles, easily far enough to hit Moscow if fired from Ukraine. Kellogg says Ukraine asked for the missiles at the UN Assembly last week, but he makes clear that the US didn't confirm their request yet.
There has been no comment either, yes, it's going to happen, or no, it's going to happen. The acknowledgement from, again, in the public reports is they were asked for.
Meanwhile, in Brussels on Tuesday, the European Union announces allocating over $2 billion to drone technology to support Ukrainian defense.
This allows Ukraine to scale up and to use its full capacity, and of course it will also allow the European Union to benefit from this technology.
This comes after NATO and EU member states on Friday agreed to build a so-called drone wall, which would detect and destroy incoming Russian drones. NATO members Poland, Romania and Estonia all report recent airspace violations by Russia. Earlier this month, NATO jets scrambled to shoot down a number of Russian drones that breached Polish airspace. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
A German court has issued its verdict in a major Chinese espionage case. The suspect, a former aide to a German politician, was found guilty of leaking data to the Chinese Communist Party for nearly 20 years. NTD international correspondent David Vivez has the details.
The verdict has been handed down: nearly 5 years in prison in the largest case of Chinese espionage in Germany to date. After a 13-day trial, it has been proven that a German national born Chinese known as Jiang Jie was an employee of the Chinese intelligence service. Jiang Jie worked as an aide for German politician Maximilian Krah from the AfD, or Alternative to Germany Party, and has been convicted of leaking more than 500 sensitive EU and party documents to China, as well as compiling the personal data of more than 25,000 Chinese dissidents in Europe. Due to at least 20 years of activity as an agent, as well as systematic spying on the EU, Germany, the AfD, and politically persecuted opposition figures, the Federal Prosecutor's Office considers Jie's case to be particularly serious.
This has been the most serious case of Chinese espionage in Germany to date. The court found that the defendant had been working for the Chinese Secret Service in the Federal Republic of Germany for almost 20 years and had become extensively involved in Chinese intelligence efforts here in Germany.
In this role, Jay focused primarily on spying on and blackmailing prominent Chinese opposition figures, with severe consequences for those affected, their families, and the Chinese opposition. The Epoch Times reports that in an intercepted conversation with a Chinese intelligence officer, the discussion is said to have included a January 2024 EU Parliament resolution against spiritual practice Falun Gong, which is persecuted in China. The co-defendant, known as Yat X, has been sentenced to 1 year and 9 months.
Finally, together with his co-defendant, Ms. X, he collected information about transports and flights departing from Halle Leipzig Airport, in particular those involving military transport, and he also collected and passed on information about individuals working in the arms industry.
The Dresden Public Prosecutor's Office is also investigating Jay's employer, Maximilian Krah, in separate proceedings. Allegations of money laundering and bribery as an elected EU Parliament representative remain pending. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
A professional climber from Slovenia has made Mission Impossible look easy. The 31-year-old is first person to complete a figure-8 loop under both wings of an airborne glider. Let's take a look at the incredible stunt.
Something like this has never been done before, and yeah, it's so much more than I tried to visualize and stuff, but like the wobbles and the fluctuation of the G-forces and everything, and it was incredible sensation, much harder than on the ground. I thought I'm prepared, but I wasn't. And that's one of the things which got me to doubt if I'm gonna actually succeed or not. My biggest challenge, especially on the first day, was not getting my fingers too cold. Then the second one was for sure like getting the perfect flow through the G-forces, like through the fluctuation, that everything was done in the right moment. So when there was a positive one, that I could hold with both hands and then take the next move when we were actually like at the neutral zone.
Yeah, got it.
A listeria outbreak linked to frozen pasta meals has sickened people nationwide. Health officials are warning consumers to avoid the recalled ready-to-eat products from Walmart and Trader Joe's. Stay with us.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Big
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Come in now for 65th anniversary savings all over the store. Like this oversized sofa in an ultra soft fabric with thick premium gel cushions and 5 throw pillows. Anniversary priced at just $9.99. That's an incredible value. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out on 65th anniversary savings happening now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. As Democrats dig in for a government shutdown, government agencies brace for impact as they're prepared to furlough thousands of government workers. President Trump announcing that this major pharmaceutical company will be cutting drug costs. How this might impact what you pay for prescription drugs. Louisiana has requested 1,000 National Guard troops to be activated in New Orleans and other areas to address public safety. Jason Blair has more. A listeria outbreak linked to frozen pasta meals has sickened people nationwide. Health officials are warning consumers to avoid the recalled ready-to-eat products from Walmart and Trader Joe's. Protesters stood right in front of a Luckin coffee shop in Manhattan today. They're getting the word out about the CCP's human rights abuses and data security when shopping at Luckin Coffee.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump in the Oval Office announcing that Pfizer will heavily discount their medications for Americans. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has more.
Just moments ago, President Trump today in the Oval Office is announcing that Pfizer will provide some of their most popular medications at heavily discounted prices for Americans, which means up to between 50 and 100% off. And that any new medications introduced into the U.S. market will be sold at the reduced most favored nation cost. This means that Pfizer will match American drug prices to the lowest drug price paid by any other developed nations. President Trump also says these drugs will be available on a federal website called TrumpRx.gov, which the administration hopes will launch in early 2026. The president also had this to say about Medicaid. Watch.
Today, Pfizer is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid, and it will be at the most favored nation's prices. It's going to have a huge impact on bringing Medicaid costs down like nothing else.
Today's announcement comes after President Trump in May signed an executive order directing drug makers to start offering U.S. patients the most favored nation pricing for their medicines. However, unhappy with the progress made by July, President Trump then sent 17 letters to CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies demanding that they lower drug prices to match those paid by other wealthy nations by September 29th, which was yesterday. And now today, Pfizer is responding to that demand. Here's FDA Commissioner Marty Makary and HHS Secretary RFK Jr. on today's announcement. Watch.
And today marks the beginning of the end of the Great American Ripoff. And it also marks the beginning and the end of a great American tragedy, something I've seen as a physician at the bedside.
We refuse to make the most vulnerable citizens continue to pay an unthinkable price for the world's pharmaceutical breakthroughs, which we pay for. No family should ever be forced to choose between filling a prescription and putting food on the table. Americans should not be gouged paying 300 or 400 or 1,000% more than people in other countries for the exact same drug.
Pfizer is also announcing a $70 billion investment in American pharmaceutical research and to reshore domestic manufacturing facilities. Pfizer will be given a 3-year grace period exempt from President Trump's pharmaceutical tariffs as long as they move all of their production to the U.S. Dawn, back to you.
President Trump is signing executive orders in the Oval Office. Let's tune in.
Getting better. You're all going to be better very soon. So they won't even need it, I don't believe. I want to thank Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who we see a lot of lately. You've been really active, haven't you? He's been very active. Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who's so fantastic. And I guess we reached a deal with Harvard today, so we'll see how that, all you have to do is paper it, right, Linda? Just
yes, sir.
Paper it out. It'll be great, though. It's going to have to do with something that's very important to everybody. CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz, FDA Commissioner Marty Makary, Director of the National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya. Is that good, Jay? That's pretty good. Perfect. Right? I'm getting better.
That's perfect.
I'm getting better. Science and Technology Advisor Michael Kratsios. AI and crypto czar David Sachs, you're doing great, David, as well as a friend of mine, Stephanie McMahon, and her incredible husband, Triple H. You all know Triple H. I'm not going to fight that guy. He's one of the greatest. I also want to thank all of the brave young people who are with us today, and they've gone through a lot, but it's really coming out very good. And I just gave them a beautiful coin. We're going to save that coin, right? Beautiful coin. In 2019, I was proud to launch the Childhood Cancer Data Initiative. And I think Stephanie was a big factor, right, Linda? She was a big factor as to what we're doing right now.
Absolutely.
Which invested $50 million a year into pediatric cancer research. And today, in line with recommendations made by Secretary Kennedy and the MAHA Commission, we're doubling that investment, adding another $50 million to Childhood Cancer Data Initiative. We're doing that immediately. And we have a lot of money coming in with the tariffs. We've never had money like this coming in. We're a rich country again. We were a dead country 1 year ago, and now we're the richest country. We're hot. We're a hot country. So it's an honor to do that. In honor of all of you, we're doing that, okay? With this order, I'm also directing the federal government to fully utilize artificial intelligence to supercharge pediatric cancer research. It's pretty amazing what's happening. For years, we've been amassing data about childhood cancer, but until now, we've been unable to fully exploit this trove of information and apply it to practical medicine. Using cutting-edge AI, we will empower our scientists and researchers to discover new treatments, cures, and prevention strategies. AI can also make groundbreaking trials and therapies, and it's just going to be so accessible to everybody, families all across the country. So it's going to be amazing. What's happening is amazing. And we have more AI. We're leading in AI. We're leading China by a lot. We're leading everybody by a lot. They're creating their own energy. We let them build their own energy plant because we don't have the energy. Nobody does to feed them. The amount of energy just the AI needs coming into this country is double what we have right now. So we're letting them go out and create their own energy plants and their own electricity. And they're doing it. We're giving them permits to build electric plants. They're becoming sort of a utility. Maybe they'll do better with being a utility. Who knows? They'll do better with being a utility than they will being AI. What do you think of the chances that they? I hope I'm wrong about that, or they made a bad bet, right? So anyway, but I want to just say that we're going to defeat childhood cancer once and for all. And I'd like to ask Stephanie to say a few words. She's a very special person. And very, very much involved in this. Thank you very much, Steph. right here, Scott.
My mother's making me step
That's
forward.
right. Your mother, she'll do this. My mother.
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. You've already acknowledged this incredible team here, and all of these people standing behind me were inspired by the story of a little boy named Connor Mahalik. He was a little boy who didn't want to hug me because he gave choke-out hugs. He booed his favorite nurse when she came to give his chemo, and he always worried about his dad because his dad was Connor's best friend. Connor was a WWE fan who I met after one of our big events, the Royal Rumble. You could tell he was sick. He had a big scar that was running up the back of his neck and a lump on his head, but you would never know it from his personality. He told me about the t-shirt that he was wearing that was dragging on the ground because WWE superstar Sheamus, who's 6'5", had given it to him. Underneath that was his Daniel Bryan t-shirt, and underneath that was his Skylanders t-shirt because that was his favorite toy. And as I stood up from my aforementioned chokeout hug, Connor's dad told me that he didn't have long to live. And I didn't want to believe that. I kissed him goodbye on his soft little cheek, and when he looked back at me, I made an unspoken promise to fight for him and kids just like him. Kids shouldn't even know what cancer is, let alone have to face it. And this incredible team believes that too. This executive order makes kids with cancer the first focus of AI innovation across healthcare in America. If there is one thing in the world that could bring us together, please let it be our children. Because I can almost guarantee, if your child was diagnosed with cancer, you wouldn't care what party their doctor belonged to. You would just want the best. And President Trump is doing just that, enabling that every child with cancer gets the best care possible. And we couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Great
sir.
job. Thank you very much. She's done that before, hasn't she? Great job. Bobby, please.
Today, President Trump signed an executive order that makes an historic promise. We will harness America's innovation in artificial intelligence to find cures for pediatric cancer. We stand here today because of Stephanie McMahon Levesque never wavered in her 11-year commitment to give every child a future free of cancer. She proves how one person's courage can change what is possible. Cancer is now the leading cause of chronic disease-related death in children, and its incidence has risen by more than 40% since 1975. We cannot accept that. We must act with urgency. The MAHA strategy report released earlier this month directs HHS to focus on research that harnesses AI to uncover causes, identify risks early, and take action in childhood and young adulthood to prevent cancer. Now, this executive order directs the MAHA Commission, working with our nation's top science and technology leaders, to deploy AI to transform cancer care and research. We will accelerate progress in the Childhood Cancer Data Initiative that President Trump launched in 2019, and that means building stronger data systems, using AI to decode complex biology, designing better clinical trials that deliver faster, more effective treatment for kids. The order doubles federal investment in the Child Cancer Data Initiative with an additional $50 million just this year. NIH will expand research while the private sector and universities will bring their best tools to the table. Together, we will ensure that every innovation, every breakthrough goes to work for our children. The order guarantees that AI will be integrated into HHS interoperability networks. We will make electronic health records and claims data work for patients and researchers. We're already doing that, and always with parents in control of their child's health information. No family should have to fight cancer with outdated tools or without access to the very best science. For too long, families have fought childhood cancer while our systems lag behind. President Trump, thank you for your leadership in changing all that. This executive order is about action, unlocking cures, empowering families, and giving every child the chance to grow up healthy and strong. With American innovation and leadership, we can make our children healthy again.
Bobby, do they know why there's quite an increase that's taken place over the last number of years? Do they know why that? Do they have any idea why that's happening?
We are doing that research, and Jay Bhattacharya can talk about that. We're doing that research now for the first time. We're focusing on that, in particular colon cancers and these cancers that never affected children before, and suddenly are epidemic in our children. And we're going to find the causes. They're environmental causes. We're going to identify them and work to eliminate them.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Jay, go ahead, please.
Hello, thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Trump, for signing this historic executive order directing your administration to use advanced artificial intelligence technologies to cure childhood cancer. By signing this executive order, the administration is advancing the NIH Childhood Cancer Data Initiative's coordinated pediatric, adolescent, and young adult rare cancer, first launched under President Trump's direction in 2019. When I was a young medical student in the 1990s, I had the privilege of spending a month in a pediatric cancer ward treating children with cancer. And I have to say it was the most difficult month of my life. I left for home every day in tears. Watching little children cope with a deadly disease is hard. They should be playing with their friends, going to school, living their best lives. But instead, they bravely face cancer. These are the bravest kids I've ever met. I have tremendous admiration for the scientists who devote their lives to finding cures for kids with cancer, for the doctors and nurses who take care of them, and for their parents who suffer alongside them, care for them, and love them. This year, nearly 9,500 children will be diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. In the mid-1970s, the 5-year survival for cancer was 58%. Today, the cancer survival rate for children with cancer is 85%. This is because of the tremendous investments we've made in treating childhood cancer, in researching it, and it's worth celebrating this achievement. But I say that 85% is still too low. We need to be at 100, whilst we still have a long way to go. The treatments these little kids undergo involve therapies like chemo or radiation that put them through hell. Even with 85% will be cured, the therapies themselves can cause health problems as kids age into adulthood. Nearly 60% of cancer survivors experience severe life-threatening complications in adulthood because of these treatments. And so we need better treatments so that we can raise the survival rate and reduce the side effects. This initiative builds on the CCDI's mission to gather data from every child, adolescent, and young adult diagnosed with cancer, no matter where they receive care. It aims to develop a platform and tools to bring together clinical care, research tools like molecular characterization and genetic information, tools that will improve preventive measures, treatment, quality of life, survival for childhood cancer. By uniting families, clinicians, and researchers, by harnessing the power of AI, CCDI will accelerate diagnosis, inform treatment, and develop the next generation of life-saving therapies. This is not about collecting data alone. It's about giving families hope. Today, we commit to taking this work to the next level. With this executive order that President Trump is signing, we're building a future where every child's data contributes to faster diagnosis. Artificial intelligence helps us uncover faster, more precise treatments, improve quality of life, and better survival. And finally, let me extend my sincere congratulations and gratitude to President Trump for his leadership and vision in giving us this opportunity to make America healthy again, to rigorously push the boundary of science and bring hope to millions of families. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's very nice. Appreciate it. Director Kratsios, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for your leadership on this issue. I am thrilled that our MAHA strategy prioritizes utilizing AI in the fight against cancer, and that this executive order is putting a priority to this action. Thank you for your commitment, Mr. President, to the United States for maintaining its global leadership in artificial intelligence across models, data sets, applications, and to issue an AI action plan to do just that. Your foresight in the first term, leading you to establish the CCDI to gather, harness, and share data on childhood cancers, has positioned us today to leverage AI in a way we could never imagine before. With America's pioneering models, American researchers now have the best tools in the world to turn the CCDI data into the building blocks of life-changing breakthroughs. So I and my team at OSTP are thrilled to partner with our teams at HHS, at NIH, and with David to empower the development of gold standard applications for the pediatric cancer research and to play our very small part in trying to protect the health and happiness of America's children. Thank you, Mr. President.
David, please.
Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, I just want to thank Stephanie McMahon and all of us for helping put this all together here. For years they played villains on TV,
but they're actually very nice people in real life. But it's because of your passion that we're all here today, so thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership on this. First of all, you did have the foresight to create this childhood cancer database way back in 2019, and that's what's going to power the AI. It's going to give us the data to find all the patterns in. The other thing you've done is you've made it your policy of this administration to support innovation, to support infrastructure, to support energy. And because of that, we have an AI boom going on right now. 3.8% growth rate in the last quarter in GDP, and a big part of that is because of the AI boom that you've unleashed. So thank you, sir, for doing that. And I think that we can see today that this AI boom is not just going to be about dollars and cents, but about saving lives as well. We're going to get some miraculous cures out of this. So thank you to everyone who's here today.
Thank you very much. Good job. We just had a meeting, and Oz was at the meeting and really was a dominant factor along with Bobby. And maybe you could just say a couple of words about our past meeting where we're going to be lowering drug prices by 50, 100, 200, even 500%, even 1,000. We have 1,000% also. We have one coming up next week, a big one, 1,000% reduction in price. Do you want to give just a couple of words on that, Oz?
It's a historic day. For the first time, we've had the magnitude of give from the pharmaceutical industry. One of their leading lights, Alfred Boula and his company Pfizer, agreed, something the president has been pushing on since his first term, and has been calling me quite frequently on speed dial over this term to make sure that Secretary Kennedy and I would seriously engage industry. They have agreed to several important concessions. First, we will have most favored nation drug pricing in this country for everyone on Medicaid. So our most vulnerable populations will not be forced to pay 3 times or more, 5, 6, 7 times more for the exact same pills in the same bottles as it costs in other countries. That'll make it a lot easier for governors to manage their budgets, and shows again a distinct passion that the president has for helping people who are most vulnerable. We've also gotten all new drugs to be released in this country to be priced at most favored nation, which means by the end of the president's term, 95% of all pharmaceutical drugs in America will be at most favored nation pricing. Again, no more discrepancies between what folks in other countries can buy their drugs for and what's being purchased in this country. Pfizer also agreed, as will companies next week when they come to visit this same White House, to onshore drugs to bring their production back into America so American workers will benefit as well. But at the same time, this is critical. It allowed Pfizer, and we believe for other pharmaceutical companies, to maintain their innovative edge. We want America to continue to find cures like the ones that saved the lives of some of the children that I'm looking at right now. And those beautiful faces and smiles are here because American innovation was not dulled, not blunted, but we can solve that need and thread the needle by also making healthcare affordable so Americans no longer, including children like this, be forced to make a difficult choice between groceries and pharmaceuticals. And I must say, Mr. President, since this morning, if you just look at the stock market, there's been support of this decision made by the CEO of Pfizer. Their stock has benefited. So I think it was the right thing for the company, the right thing for the policies of this administration, which is a pretty cool place to work. But most importantly, it's the right thing for the American people.
Thank you very much. And maybe we'll just finish it off with Linda, because she's been such an incredible cabinet member and done such a good job. Maybe you want to say something about your unbelievable daughter and son-in-law, because they've worked very hard on this.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to do that. I don't think that, any mother could be any more proud of all of the efforts that Stephanie's made in support also of Paul. Stephanie first talked about this 10 or 11 years ago after Lil Connor. And I remember one of the things that she said to me was, I really would like to somehow convene the people and the scientists who think outside of the box, because research is done in very standard terms. You do this, and yes, you have to do that. But she said, I really would like to tap into some of the most creative and inventive minds in the country to be able to look at research differently for pediatric cancer. And she did that. It took her about 10 years, and she kept tapping in and calling people, being pretty relentless about it. Driven herself by a mother's heart. And I couldn't be any more proud of the work she's done. I'm happy to stand by and be a supportive mom and be very proud of her today.
Thanks. Good job you're doing. Thank you very much, Linda. Okay, any questions, please?
Mr. President, as we inch closer to a government shutdown this morning, you said you might do a lot of layoffs.
If DOGE is already reducing the federal workforce, why is it necessary to link more federal jobs cut to a shutdown?
Well, the Democrats want to shut it down, so when you shut it down, you have to do layoffs. So we'd be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they're going to be Democrats. As you know, this country, no country can afford to pay for illegal immigration, health care for everybody that comes into the country, and that's what they're insisting. And obviously, I have an obligation to not accept that. That would affect everybody. You know, when I see what we're doing with AI and all the plants that are opening up in the country, $17 trillion is coming. And if you compare that to Biden, Biden had, in 4 years, less than $1 trillion. We have $17 trillion, more than that. I think it's going to be much more than that, David, by the end of this year. I think it's going to be far over that. It's a record. It's already a record in 8 months. It's a record by a lot. And so we're doing well as a country, so the last thing we want to do is shut it down. But a lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things, but they want open borders. They want men playing in women's sports. They want transgender for everybody. They never stop. They don't learn. We won an election in a landslide. They just don't learn. So we have no choice. I have to do that for the country. Yes?
You mentioned a deal with Harvard, Mr. President. What is that deal? Will they be paying the administration?
Well, we're in the process of getting very close, and Linda's finishing up the final details, and they'd be paying about $500 million, and they'll be operating trade schools. They're going to be teaching people how to do AI and lots of other things, engines, lots of things. You know, we need people in trade schools. I remember when I went to school, I had some people that weren't particularly good students, but they could take a motor or an engine apart blindfolded and put it back blindfolded, but they weren't too good at other things, and many of them ended up doing better than the people that were. So trade schools are very important, and we've lost trade schools. We used to have a lot of trade schools in this country. We don't have them anymore. We have tremendous plants opening, and we want to have people at top level for those plants, whether it's AI or whether it's automotive plants. You know, we have many automobile companies open their plants in the United States. They're all coming back for two reasons: tariffs, and I think they liked November 5th. You know, they liked the person that was chosen, and they're moving in from Canada, they're moving in from Mexico, they're coming in from all over the world. China is coming. They're all coming, and that way they avoid paying tariffs. So, you know, they're coming for that reason. So by opening up trade school, because we're going to need employees, we're going to need people with skill. And I think I can say, Linda, you feel the same way. By opening up trade school, this would be a giant trade school, series of trade schools. It would be run by Harvard. Now, this is something that we're close to finalizing. We haven't done it yet. But they'd put up $500 million. Interest and everything else would go to that account, meaning go to the trade school. And, you know, it's a big investment in trade school, done by very smart people. And then their sins are forgiven. So we have a good chance of getting that close. Yeah, please.
President Trump, thank you. I've been looking at this chart that you showed us earlier, so it's left over lost earlier. U.S. prices for bread drugs are 422% higher than comparable countries. You know,
Yeah.
I'm young, maybe I'm inexperienced, but I think a lot of Americans are wondering, how did we even get here, being one of the biggest buyers?
You got here by incompetent people sitting behind this desk. You had a lot of incompetent people. I did it, as you know, I started it in you know, my first term. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cuts in history. We did all these things, and we had the best economy in the history of our country during my first term. And by the way, this is blowing it away based on what we're seeing. But we got it by having people allow that to happen. And as you know, I started the process, but then when COVID came, we focused on COVID, not on this. And I said, if I ever go back and do it again, I'm going to make this a primary thing, because other countries are paying a fraction of what we pay for the same exact drug, same exact pharmaceutical, everything. And I said, no, it's not right. And the drug companies actually came along. You know, don't forget, they make 30, 40, 50 million a year, these people. They're very smart. And they had a lot of people convinced that, you know, that's the way it has to be. They talked about research and development. We had to pay. I said, well, why isn't Germany paying? Why aren't other countries paying? And they always had a good answer, but it got to a point where I didn't like the answer anymore, and I said, we have to do this, and we did. And the team that we have with Oz and Bobby and Chris and all of the people that we had working on it, and
I must tell you, Marty's been a big, wherever you may be, Marty, but Marty's been a big factor. We have a great team. There's never been a medical team like this, and I said, let's go do it. And then I did, as I said, I would bug them every single day, every week, because I said, we have to have, I mean, why should we be paying 10 times what another country is paying? And that was just an excuse, research and development. We do research and development. So now we're going to be paying whatever the lowest price is, we're going to be paying that price. So it's a great thing. But there won't be anything that can have the impact on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, anything where you need pharmaceuticals, medicines. The numbers are going to come way down. Even Obamacare, which is terrible, it's not been good, as you know. It's a weak form of health care. But it'll be better because the medicine's going to come in at a very low price. Yes, please.
Yes, Mr. President. It seems like every time you assemble your MAHA team and your cabinet members behind here in regards to health issues, it just keeps getting powerful. And look at these young kids there and the weight that is on the world right now that you can lift by what you're doing. I've often said Trump could cure cancer and people would still criticize him.
That's true.
It's true. What is your message to America that this potentially could bring us all together, get us on the same page and have unity? And I'd like to see if some of the kids or the parents have what it means to you to see President Trump get involved with this.
Well, we've made tremendous strides in cancer research, far more than anyone has done. And we have the greatest minds, the greatest people working on it. And childhood, they call it childhood cancer. It's a very specific thing. And we've really made a lot of progress. I think something that's going to allow us to make a lot of progress is the money we're saving on pharmaceuticals. I mean, we'll be saving 500, 600, 1,000%. Nobody's ever heard of that. I told the story, you were here before, that when I was in the previous administration, my first term, I was so proud of myself because I'm the first president in 28 years that cut drug prices from beginning to end. So they went down. I think it was 1/8% or 1/4%. And I was so proud of that, I thought that was great. Now I'm cutting them 500%. And I will say this, politically speaking, the people understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't have won in a landslide. I get 97% bad press, and I won in a landslide, which tells you the press has no credibility. But I will say that what we've done has been a great tribute to the people that's standing behind me in different forms. Linda in education, different, but what she's doing in education, she's sending education back to the states. That's a big move. The states, you go back to Indiana, Iowa, I would say 40 states will be great. 45 will be, the 5% of them will be pretty good, and then you're going to have a Gavin Newsom and some other people that aren't going to do a good job, but we'll help them out. I want to help them out. And we're going to have safe cities again. We're going to be very safe. We're going to be going to Chicago pretty soon because a friend of mine, a great guy, the head of the Union Pacific, he said, sir, you have to save Chicago. It's going bad. It's going bad fast, and it's a great city. He's right. It's a great city. I know it very well. And we have to save Chicago. So we're going to Memphis, Tennessee right now. We've had a home run in D.C. You can walk out. Brian, you got mugged here a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
And the mugger must have felt some pain because you're a tough cookie.
Well, he had a gun, and I wish I would have had
I know. Well, then, if he had a gun, all you can do is say thank you very much. No, but it's everybody here. I mean, you were here in the room when I said to the reporters, who got mugged in the last year? And like half of the people raised their hand. Now, if you said who got mugged over the last 60 days, nobody. No killing, no nothing. And the restaurants are booming, the town is booming, it's clean. The National Guard actually went out and started cleaning all the crap out of the parks. The tents are knocked down. We had one that you said it was a blue tent, and you said it was a communist tent, right? See, we're going to have a communist mayor of New York, so, let's see how that works out.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. Everyone's very appreciative.
Yeah. You told me about a blue tent, and I said, I can't be there because we knocked them down. But this was a very highly sophisticated group of people that had permits and all the other things. Well, their permit expired. We knocked it down. It took, 24 hours less, maybe? Yes, sir. So I appreciate you telling me that. No, we have a great thing going. The country is doing incredible. We are a hot country. The hottest. We're the hottest country in the world right
Do the
now.
parents or the kids have anything they'd like to say?
Yeah, that's a great question. Would you like to say something?
I would.
That's a good comment right there. That's the best comment you've made in a long time.
Mr. President, good evening. I'm Josh Armstrong. My name is Josh Armstrong. I'm from West Virginia, and I'm the father of this amazingly brave and resilient little 6-year-old, Laurel. Laurel was diagnosed with leukemia when she was 2 years old, just before her 3rd birthday. And we went on to watch as she spent months in the hospital fighting for her life, as she received blood transfusions and platelet transfusions, as she fought off one potentially fatal infection after another. We watched as her body swelled and became painful from steroids, and then as it became frail and weak from chemotherapy. And we watched and we wondered why there aren't better treatments available, and we wondered what might happen if she doesn't get the drugs she needs, and we wondered why isn't anybody doing more? And on behalf of myself and all the parents that have watched and wondered, we'd like to say that what you're doing today gives parents like me and children like Laurel the one thing that we most desperately need, and that's hope.
And Laurel's
Hope
doing
that,
well.
and
She's
Laurel
doing-
is, I'm happy to say Laurel's in remission today.
That's good. She looks so beautiful.
Thank you, she is beautiful.
You feeling good, Laurel?
That's for you.
She looks so great.
Because of this bill, doctors are going to be able to get better treatments faster to patients like Laurel.
Big
And
difference.
because of you making children like her real children, not cases or statistics, but children like Laurel and all of these children here today, we have that hope. And we are so proud that you're standing with children with cancer and making it a national priority.
It's very nice.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We're with you all the way. How about you? Back there, Dad?
Actually, I'd like my daughter to speak. We let
Oh,
her
I like that much
Carolyn
better.
would like to speak. She's
That's very good. I'd like you to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Hendricks. When I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, a pediatric bone cancer. 11 years later, I'm now 16 years old, and I'm doing great. What you're doing today, Mr. President, means that kids like me will get better options and so much more hope for the future. This will help doctors use technology to find cures faster, match patients to trials more quickly, and give our families more control over our health. For kids, every day counts. This order shows that our lives matter enough to be first in line for innovation. On behalf of children and young adults with cancer, those still fighting and those in remission like me, and families who wish that they had more time together, thank you for making us a national priority. Mr. President, because of actions like this, kids like me have the chance to grow up, to chase our dreams, and to live full lives. And that is the greatest gift anyone could ever give.
Wow, that was so good. Your father could not have done that like you. You did us a big service, Father.
Yes, sir.
That's great. Where did you learn how to speak like that?
I've done lots of speeches for childhood cancer over the last few years, and I'm also in a theater program, so that
That's
helps a
great.
lot.
Well, good. That's a great job. Would anybody like to say something? Would anybody? Would you like to say something, honey?
Yes. I'm Iloni Myers and I'm 9 years old, and I had a blood cancer called leukemia when I was only 2 years old. I had to get treated at 7 different hospitals across this country, and I had to have 2 bone marrow transplants, one for my dad and one for my mom. And I had to spend many days and the nights in the hospital getting pokies and yucky medicine. And me and my parents were very worried, and I had to go through those 7 different hospitals to find the best treatment that can make me better. And thank you, Mr. President, for making everything happen today. So kids like me and Laura, we can still be living today and speaking.
Doing better than any of us have done. We're doing lousy. We're not doing so well today. They're doing so good. That was fantastic. Thank you. And you feeling good now?
Yes.
Are you all better? You're pretty close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you're going to do good.
Mhm.
Anybody like to say something? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I've had a brain tumor since I was 4 months. Now I'm off all medicines. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had a brain tumor since I was 4 months, and I'm doing great. I'm 15 now, and I'm going to 10th
And you're going to be a football player, offensive lineman. You You look fantastic. How about somebody else? I love hearing this. I love hearing you talk because you talk better than any of us, right, Jim?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Amazing.
We wouldn't miss this.
Well, thank you. But you know, we're doing a lot for you, and you're all gonna be better very soon. I don't think you're gonna need any of the help that we're giving. It's gonna be for the future. But I want to thank you for being with us, and I'm gonna bring them back to a room. We have a room where we have lots of hats and things in the back, and would you like to go back and we'll pick some nice presents?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get rid of the wonderful people of the media. Do you like the media? They're nice, right? They have good days, right? Yeah. They do, actually, they do. Thank you very much. That's beautiful. That's really good. And thank you. We're not going to top that, so I want to just thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that was President Trump at the Oval Office signing an executive order using AI to combat childhood cancer rates and helping children heal. We're taking a short break now. A listeria outbreak linked to frozen pasta meals has sickened people nationwide. Health officials are warning consumers to avoid the recalled ready-to-eat products from Walmart and Trader Joe's. One nonprofit wants you to protect your data from the Luckin Coffee brand and the CCP. Stay tuned for those stories and more after this break.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. He won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
The Louisiana governor says that the White House will be approving up to 1,000 National Guard troops in his state at his request. Governor Jeff Landry says he wants to address public safety concerns in New Orleans and other cities. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
We're sending the Department of War a request to send the National Guard, asking them to deploy the National Guard here in Louisiana.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry tells Fox News that he's requesting up to 1,000 National Guard troops to be activated across the state. He says he looks to focus on New Orleans.
And we are going to crack down on violence in the city of New Orleans. We're not going to tolerate this uptick in violence that's going on right now.
This comes as Attorney General Pam Bondi announces that a federally led crackdown on crime similar to what happened in Washington, D.C. has officially started in Memphis, Tennessee. Bondi says our operation in Memphis is now underway. Yesterday, 9 arrests were made and 2 illegal firearms were taken off the streets. And an update on the victims in the Dallas ICE facility sniper attack. A second shooting victim has died from his injuries after being left in critical condition, according to the victim's family. The victim, Miguel Garcia Hernandez, was one of the 3 detainees shot during the attack, along with Norlin Guzman Fuentes, and another unnamed victim who is critically injured but is still alive. Authorities say that the shooter was indiscriminately aiming for ICE personnel and property from a nearby rooftop and hit the detainees unintentionally. The detainees were inside a transport van parked in the facility's sallyport. In Illinois, the Department of Homeland Security has requested for 100 more troops to be sent to the state. Tensions have been rising between Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Trump administration, as well as heated protests outside of an ICE facility in a Chicago suburb. On Sunday, federal agents were seen patrolling downtown Chicago. Governor Pritzker has said that the move, quote, is not making anybody safer and is, quote, a show of intimidation. And President Trump is not showing any signs of slowing down soon.
It seems that the ones that are run by the radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one.
Jason Blair, NTD News.
With less than 12 hours until government funding is set to expire, Democrats maintain their position of forcing a shutdown if their demands are not met. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the latest.
The Farm Service agencies in my state, the Federal Highway Administration employees in my state or any of the other states and my colleagues who are represented here, the Park Service employees in our state, these are all people that are going to be affected by this, and not to mention our military men and women, our men and women in uniform. So this is a totally avoidable crisis.
Republicans are bracing for an imminent government shutdown that will affect non-essential federal workers across the country. Democrats insist that the only way to avert a government shutdown is to repeal parts of the Republican-passed reconciliation bill, which has already been signed into law.
Healthcare by more than $1 trillion. Hospitals are already laying off staff and closing down across the country. Millions are going to soon be kicked off of their healthcare.
Democrats could vote for a continuing resolution that has already passed through the House to avert a government shutdown while healthcare provision negotiations continue. Republicans have already signaled that they're willing to negotiate with Democrats, but that the priority is to keep the government open.
The question is what's changed. I think what's changed is President Trump is in the White House. That's what this is about. This is politics. And there isn't any substantive reason why there ought to be a government shutdown. This is something that has been done routinely, as I said, 13 different times when the Democrats had the majority.
Well, the radical wing of the Democrat Party is demanding that Chuck Schumer shut down the government. If not, they'll be held to pay. We know that Chuck Schumer has had a war room going for the last couple of months to orchestrate the shutdown. That is their plan. So he comes up with this ransom note asking for $1 trillion to just keep the government open for 4 weeks.
Democrats are also demanding the permanent extension of Affordable Care Act healthcare tax credits that are set to expire by the end of the year. The expiration date was set by Democrats back in 2021.
And for those of you that ask, why are you doing this now? This isn't a December thing. This isn't a January thing. This is a now thing. This is happening right now. And the only way to fix this is to do something about it now.
Government funding is set to expire at 12:01 at midnight tonight. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
A Senate committee convened today to examine the perceived weaponization of an airport screening program called Quiet Skies. The program was originally designed to mitigate threats posed by unknown or partially known terrorists. But whistleblowers and investigators have said the program was used to surveil ordinary American passengers. NTD's Arlene Richards has more details.
In mid-2024, as she grew increasingly critical of the Biden administration and increasingly involved with the Trump campaign, Tulsi Gabbard noticed changes as she went to the airport. She had more screening, federal agents with dogs showing up for her flights. Other federal agents followed her on the plane and reported back on her activity.
Senator Rand Paul, chair of a Homeland Security Committee, speaking today on an investigation into allegations of corruption in the Quiet Skies program. Quiet Skies is an airport screening program designed to mitigate threats posed by unknown or partially known terrorists. It was implemented in 2012 as part of the Secure Flight Vetting Program, which monitored a select list of individuals known or suspected of engaging in terrorist activities. Individuals on the select list could be subject to extended screening measures called Special Mission Coverage, or SMC. It includes screenings involving K-9 teams, pat-downs, luggage search, and air marshal surveillance. But witnesses testified on Tuesday that the Quiet Skies program assigns SMC to passengers who are not on the selected list or even on the terrorist watch list at all. Federal Air Marshal Mark Crowder, a whistleblower, said the system has eroded.
On July 15, 2021, while serving in the Houston Field Office Operations Unit, I was monitoring special mission coverage flights in our area of responsibility. To my shock, I discovered that my wife, Christine, seated behind me, had been flagged in the FAMS system as a domestic terrorist, falsely accused of entering the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021.
Crowder said his wife was nowhere near the Capitol that day, having only attended President Trump's rally. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ended the Quiet Skies program in June. At that time, she said the program has, quote, failed to stop a single terrorist attack while costing U.S. taxpayers $200 million a year. Another witness on the panel testified that current intelligence director and former Senator Tulsi Gabbard was subjected to intrusive searches across 8 flights, which included surveillance by 3 federal air marshals per flight. Ranking Committee member Gary Peters acknowledged problems within the screening practices that target ordinary travelers, particularly Arabs and Muslims. He blamed the executive branch.
Almost all of the oversight mechanisms are internal to the executive branch, such as the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board and the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office at DHS. Unfortunately, with the administration's attacks on oversight, these mechanisms have now been gutted, eliminating one of the few checks and balances that Americans can use to protect their rights in this process.
At the end of the hearing, the chairman said the investigation is not over and that they are now looking into a project on extremism at George Washington University. They'll be looking into reports of research being conducted on people who refused to wear masks and people who attended the January 6 Trump rally. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
The CDC reports that a nationwide listeria outbreak linked to recalled frozen meals has left 4 people dead and several others hospitalized. Officials say the contamination is tied to ready-to-eat pasta dishes. NTD's Christina Corona has the details.
According to the CDC, a listeria outbreak linked to recalled frozen meals has killed 4 people and hospitalized 19 others nationwide. Health officials say the contamination is tied to ready-to-eat pasta dishes sold at Walmart and Trader Joe's. At Walmart, the recall includes their market-side linguine with beef meatballs and marinara sauce sold in 12-ounce trays. The use-by dates are from September 22nd through October 1st. At Trader Joe's, the recall is for the Cajun-style blackened chicken breast fettuccine alfredo with use-by dates of September 20th, 24th, and 27th. The recall was first issued in June and expanded in late September. So far, the outbreak has spread to 15 states with 20 cases confirmed. The product should not be on store shelves. However, the CDC warns they still may be in people's refrigerators or freezers. Officials urge people to not eat them and to either discard or return them. The CDC also advises cleaning refrigerators, containers, and surfaces that may have come into contact with the meals, since Listeria can survive cold temperatures and spread to other foods. The bacteria poses the greatest risk to pregnant women, older adults, and people with weakened immune systems. Christina Corona, NTD News.
In London, 2 people have been convicted of money laundering in a $7 billion fraud scheme. Prosecutors say the ringleader, a Chinese woman, defrauded 130,000 people, converted the money to Bitcoin, and then fled from China to Britain. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
2 people have pleaded guilty in a London court to money laundering offences in what is believed to be one of the world's biggest cryptocurrency scams. It's part of an investigation where British police seized virtual wallets holding more than 61,000 Bitcoin, which is currently worth $6.9 billion. Chinese national Qian Zemin, who is also known as Zhang Yadi, pleaded guilty on Monday to acquiring and possessing criminal property. And on Tuesday, Malaysian national Hock Seng Ling pleaded guilty to transferring criminal property. The 2 were arrested in April last year when British police seized assets, including encrypted devices, cash, gold, and more cryptocurrency. Police said the cryptocurrency seizure follows a 7-year ongoing investigation into international money laundering. Investigators said that between 2014 and 2017, Qian defrauded more than 128,000 victims through a large-scale fraud scheme in China. Her company sold investment products and promised returns of up to 300%, but police said Qian took the money and converted it into Bitcoin, and that in 2018 she fled China using fake documents and entered the UK. Police added that Qian attempted to launder the proceeds by purchasing property with the help of Jian Wen in September 2018. Wen, a former restaurant worker, was sentenced last year to 6 years and 8 months for her role in the scheme. Wen was found with Bitcoin wallets worth more than $2.6 billion, and police said she had acted as a front person for Qian. Qian and Ling will be sentenced in November. Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor Robin Wales said Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are increasingly being used by organised criminals to disguise and transfer assets. London Metropolitan Police said this is one of the largest money laundering cases in UK history, and among the highest value cryptocurrency cases globally. British Security Minister Dan Jarvis said the UK will never be a safe haven for criminals and their ill-gotten gains. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Protesters gather in front of a Chinese coffee chain, Luckin Coffee in Manhattan today. NTD Sean Marshall has more about their concerns.
Luckin Coffee, a Chinese coffee chain, is what some refer to as the new Starbucks. It is now opening locations in the United States after having surpassed Starbucks in China. A protest organized by Bold Action for Freedom, a non-profit organization, was held on September 30th right in front of one of Luckin Coffee's Manhattan locations to warn the public of possible data security problems. A requirement of Luckin Coffee is that you have to download the app to make an order.
This Communist China coffee chain is required per Communist China laws to share any data with the Communist government in China.
Once they have backdoor access, they can steal sensitive information like passwords, financial data, health information, personal chats, intellectual property. They can also gain control over your device to install additional malware that runs commands remotely.
Tony Zelinsky is president of Bold Action for Freedom and is spreading the word about CCP risks in the American technology and manufacturing industries.
And they could even, with the hidden backdoor, install malware where the device could be caused to malfunction. And so right now, that's not evident to people that are downloading it. But if we have issues with Communist China down the road, they have this in their back pocket that they can use if that's the direction that they're going.
In 2020, China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology reported Luckin Coffee to have infringed on user rights and illegally collected personal information. And in 2024, Shanghai authorities summoned representatives of Luckin Coffee over what they said was the illicit collection of consumer personal information.
why does China want our data? Why are they so interested in collecting our data? And the first reason is that it's very profitable and it increases their power. Communist China, has pilfered trillions of dollars of intellectual property from multinational corporations, trillions of dollars. Now, so there's a lot of value in gleaning data, from people and corporations.
Getting the word out about the CCP's human rights abuses, Salih Hudayar has undergone extreme harassment.
Outside of East Turkestan, we've faced extensive transnational repression, harassment. I've had Chinese individuals, stalking me, stalking my house, taking photos. I don't know who shot up my house, but one day when no one was there, just to send a warning, they sent, I guess someone came and shot our windows out.
Representatives of the Tibetan Youth Congress also spoke out to the public about CCP technology and colonial boarding schools. The groups are taking steps to educate the public's understanding of the potential risks that they're undertaking by downloading an app monitored by the Chinese Communist Party. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We're taking a short break now. We'll be back with more news. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.